The ceiling came down on me at 3:47 in the morning, and my last clear thought was that I had not finished my noodles. That is not a metaphor. There was a bowl on the desk, half a bowl of instant noodles going soft, and an entire apartment block folded onto it like a bad card table. I was awake. That is the part nobody tells you. I was awake under about 9 floors of somebody else's kitchen for a long, long time, and I did the whole thing. I yelled. I scratched at a slab the size of a car with my fingernails. I made deals with a ceiling, and then I stopped making deals and just lay there listening to the dust settle, which is a sound, by the way. Dust has a sound. So I died, and I was extremely annoyed about it. Then I woke up, not in a white room, not on a cloud, in a body. Somebody else's body. Somebody named Li Ming, 17 years old, martial arts family, good bones, better reflexes, and a head full of memories that were not mine but showed up anyway like a roommate's mail. I got 4 months. 4 whole months of being alive again, of eating real food and sleeping in a bed with a ceiling that stayed where I put it. And then I saw a little girl step off a curb in front of a delivery truck, and my legs made the decision before my brain was invited. The truck won. Trucks usually do. I remember the sky doing that thing where it goes very wide and very quiet, and I remember thinking, oh, come on, twice in one lifetime plus a bonus round. Some people go their whole existence without so much as a stubbed toe, and I am out here collecting deaths like they are stamps. The universe said, lol, 3rd time's the charm, buddy. Because I opened my eyes again. Grass. That was the first thing. Grass under my cheek and a sun that was aggressively fine about the whole situation. I sat up in a field I had never seen, in a body I had definitely used before, and the sky said hello. It said hello with text. Big glowing letters hanging in the air, which is not something skies typically do. Welcome, Lord. Please name your territory. I sat there for a solid minute doing nothing, not thinking, not panicking, just sitting in the grass, being a man who has died twice and is now being asked to fill out paperwork. Then I said, out loud, to nobody, Huaxia City, and the ground answered. A boundary drew itself around me in light, a square of nothing that was suddenly mine, and the sky told me I was now the lord of a city, with a population of 1, a treasury of 100 gold coins, and no city. Then it told me my talent. Every lord got one, everybody. Millions of people from my planet, yanked sideways into a world called Lord Continent, each handed one gift and told to survive. And most of them got something reasonable. Strength, speed, fire, a knack for farming. I got fusion. Take 2 things, squeeze them together, get one better thing. I want to be honest with you about my first reaction because I think it matters. My first reaction was disappointment. I remember standing in an empty field with a starter sword and an axe thinking, that's it? Everybody else is getting lightning and I'm getting arts and crafts. I was so stupid. I was so stupid. The system gave me 10 corn seeds, white quality, which is the polite way of saying garbage. 24 hours to grow, and I would get maybe enough corn to feel worse about myself. So I took 2 of them, held them together, and told the talent to go. Something behind my eyes tugged, like a muscle I had never used, deciding it existed. The 2 seeds became 1 seed, and the 1 seed was green. Green quality. 12 hours instead of 24. Double the yield. I looked at that seed sitting in my palm, and my whole chest went hot. Because 2 goes into 1, and that 1 can go into another 1. And there is no rule anywhere that says where it stops. I fused 9 more times in a row, and then the world tilted, and I sat down hard in the dirt with my ears ringing. 10 fusions, and my brain was a wrung towel. Fine, noted. There is a fuel gauge. I planted what I had, 10 green stalks in a square of dirt, and I went to find water. That is when the sky spoke to everybody at once. A lord had died. Somewhere out there, some poor guy had already been eaten by something, and the heavenly Tao, which is what this world uses instead of a customer service department, announced that the dead do not stay dead. They go home, straight back to our planet, alive, whole, in their own beds. And then they get to watch. That was the part that made my stomach drop. Every person who died here woke up back on 9 provinces with a screen and a favorite. Billions of people sitting in their apartments, picking a lord and watching them live. Live stream, no commercials, no filter, And the lords cannot see the audience and cannot hear them and mostly do not believe it is happening. Somewhere out there, at that exact moment, a stranger was eating cereal and watching a man in a field talk to a corn seed. Hi, yeah, that was me. I did not know yet. Here's what I did not expect and what I will never really shake off. When word got around that dying sent you home, people started dying on purpose. Thousands of them, in the first hours. They walked into their own swords. They ran headfirst at rocks. One guy climbed his own half-built wooden house and jumped off it, which, and I say this with love, is a 9-foot house. He had to try 3 times. Whole crowds of people who had been on this planet for less than a day looked at a world where you could own a city and build an army, and instead went, nope, I have work on Monday. I stood in my field and watched the announcements roll past like credits, and I felt something cold settle in, because they were going home, and I did not have a home. I had a bowl of noodles under 9 floors of concrete and a truck's grill coming at me very fast. Whatever this was, whatever it cost, this was the only door left. So I picked up the axe and went to work. Chopping wood in this world is honest labor for about 4 minutes, and then it becomes a slot machine. Trees drop chests, little white chests, sitting there in the grass like the tree was hiding it. My very first treasure chest in another dimension contained women's underwear. I stood there holding it for longer than I want to admit. Not shocked, just doing math. Because either the loot tables in this world were assembled by a lunatic, or my luck stat was a practical joke, and honestly, both were on the table. I put it in my bag. Do not judge me. It was a bag with one thing in it. Then a rabbit tried to kill me. I want to be clear that I am not exaggerating for effect. A level 1 wild rabbit came out of the grass and it did not run. It stopped. It looked at me. I looked at it. It had the eyes of something that has never lost a fight, which, given that it was a rabbit and I had an axe, told me a lot about the previous residents of this field. We stared at each other for about 10 seconds. Then it charged and I hit it with an axe and it turned into a book. Gathering skill. Suddenly, I could strip a whole square of ground of everything useful with one motion, instead of picking things up like a man looking for his keys. Plus 10 rabbit meat. My first day on Lord Continent, and I had a skill, a meat supply, and lingerie. And then I found the lake. I came over a rise looking for a stream, and there it was. A lake the size of a small town, blue and cold and absolutely enormous, with a bamboo forest sitting on its shore like it had been left there for me specifically. I want you to understand what water means in a world where 1 million people just got dropped into empty fields with 100 gold coins. It means everything. It means everything immediately. Because they had seeds and no water. They had soldiers and no water. They had a whole starter kit that assumed water was a thing that just happens to you, and most of them landed on a plain or a hill or a nice dry patch of nothing, and by the second day the chat channel was a wall of people asking, politely at first, where the rivers were. I cut bamboo. I cut a lot of bamboo. I sliced the stalks into sections, hollowed them, capped them, and filled them. And I sat down on a rock next to the only lake anybody had found and opened the trading channel with a canteen of water in my hands and a smile I am not proud of. Fresh water, sealed, bamboo container included. The first person to answer traded me a box of matches, a whole box of matches for 1 canteen, and he thanked me. The second sent 60 units of wood. The third sent iron ore, actual iron ore, for water I had scooped out of a lake with my hands. Then somebody in the chat channel did the math out loud and called me a profiteer. Then somebody else called me a bloodsucker. Then a third guy said he would rather die of thirst, and about 40 people agreed with him very loudly. And then that same guy bought 2 canteens 90 minutes later under a different name, which I know because he used the same greeting. That was the day the continent decided what I was. I have never once been able to change their minds, and I stopped trying by the end of the week. I took the wood and I built a barracks. Not a house, not a wall. A barracks, because 100 gold and a stack of wood buys you exactly one meaningful thing on day 1, and the meaningful thing is people. And the sky screamed. The first barracks in the world has been constructed. All lords are hereby notified, the whole planet. My name, or at least my city's name, in the sky above every single field, hill, desert, and island where a lord was standing. 1,000 gold coins and 10 reputation, straight into my pocket, for being first by maybe 40 minutes. The chat channel went absolutely feral. Half of them wanted to know how. The other half realized, all at the same second, that they had personally paid for it. The guy who traded me 60 wood typed one line and then went quiet for 2 days. Somebody else typed, I gave that man iron ore in the tone of a man identifying a body. I summoned my first 10 soldiers that afternoon. They came out of the barracks one at a time, real people, breathing, blinking, and they lined up in front of me and I asked for their names. Wang Wei, Wang Long, Long Kai, Wang Bo, all the way to Wang Hao. 10 men, one surname, numbered 1 through 10. I stood there looking at my brand new army, which had clearly been assembled by whatever part of the system also handles the underwear, and I said, Wang Kai, you're the captain. He said, why me, my lord? Because you have the best number. He accepted this. He accepted it instantly and completely and stood up straighter. And I want the record to show that Mang Kai ran my water production line for the next month and never once asked a follow-up question. 10 men on a lakeshore with bamboo and knives. That was the beginning of it. That was my entire nation. And somewhere out on the other side of a very large continent, in a city that did not exist yet, an angel was going to spend a great deal of money trying to have me killed for what happened next. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The water business made me rich in about 3 days, which sounds impressive until you learn that rich on day 3 meant I could afford a fence. Here's the thing nobody warns you about being the only man with a lake. Everyone knows where you are. Not the location, they could not find that, but they knew I existed, and they knew I had things. And a certain kind of person hears that and starts thinking about what happens when the cellar runs out of guards. So I stopped selling water and started selling water plus. Bamboo canteens became bamboo cups. Bamboo cups became bamboo buckets, bamboo poles, bamboo scaffolding, bamboo spears. I had 10 men and a forest of the fastest growing building material in existence, and while everyone else was arguing about fairness in the chat channel, I was quietly becoming the guy who supplied the arguing. And every night, I fused. 10 times. Faint, sleep, wake up, 10 more. Seeds first, always seeds, because food is the floor under everything else. White corn to green corn to blue. And on the 4th night, 2 blue seeds went into my hands, and what came out was purple. And the description said it grew in 4 hours and permanently increased the constitution of anyone who ate it. Food that makes you stronger. Not temporarily, permanently. I sat down on the floor of a wooden shack and laughed until my ribs hurt, because I finally understood what I had. Everyone else got a weapon. I got a printing press. The corn went into the shop the next morning, at a price that made 3 separate people call me an enemy of the people. They bought all of it in 9 minutes. Then, the heavenly Tao announced a 10 times drop rate week, and the continent lost its mind. Every monster, every chest, every tree, 10 times the loot for 7 days. Lords who had been hiding behind walls came sprinting out into the wilderness like it was a fire sale. A lot of them did not come back. And every single one who did not come back woke up at home with a headache and a strong opinion about me specifically, because by then I was famous enough to be everybody's default villain. I did not go monster hunting. I sent Wang Kai. I stayed home and fused chests. That is the whole trick, by the way. That was always the whole trick. Everybody spent that week getting 10 times as many white quality items, and I spent that week turning 10 times as many white quality items into things that had never existed on Lord Continent before. By the end of the 7 days, I had blue quality tools, a green longbow, 3 building blueprints nobody else on the continent had drawn, and a wolf problem. The wolf problem arrived at dusk on the last day of the drop week, and it arrived as a sound. Not howling, panting. Dozens of things breathing at once out past the tree line, coordinated, patient, and getting closer in a curve instead of a line. Wild dogs first, then wolves, then something enormous with horns that I later learned was a wild buffalo, and at the time I called several things I will not repeat. My 10 men held a fence made of bamboo. We won. I want to be clear that we won. And I want to be equally clear that we won because I stood on a crate behind them with a green bow and shot until my fingers bled, and because bamboo, it turns out, makes a truly excellent spear when you cut it at an angle. Wang Chung took a bite to the leg. He kept his spear. I sat with him afterward while somebody wrapped it, and I remember looking at the wall of dead animals in front of my fence and thinking, very calmly, that 10 men is not an army. 10 men is a rumor of an army. The next morning, I built the Hall of Souls. I did not know what it was. That is the honest version. It came out of a chest during the drop week, gold quality, unique, and the description was vague in the way that expensive things are vague. It absorbs the souls of everything that dies near your territory. 10,000 soul value summons a hero from the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame, not a hero. The Hall of Fame. I had just fought off a wolf pack. There were a great many souls lying in front of my fence. I walked into that hall, put my hand on the altar, and spent every point I had on a coin flip I did not understand. Light came in from every direction at once and folded itself into a man in white armor with a spear taller than he was, and he looked around my sad little bamboo town, and then he looked at me, and he bowed. Chen Feng greets his lord. I have been in a lot of rooms in my life. That is the only time I have ever needed to sit down from meeting somebody. His base attributes were higher than everything in my territory combined. He gained 20 per level. His loyalty read 100, and it was not going to move, ever, because the Hall of Fame does not send you people who leave. I gave him the green longbow. He looked at it the way you look at a gift from a child, said "Thank you, my lord," with total sincerity, and then took it out that afternoon and killed 60 ironback lynxes with it. That was the week the chat channel started calling me the big landlord. It was not affectionate. Somebody typed it in the middle of a complaint about my seed prices, and it stuck the way nicknames do when they are 70% accurate. Big landlord, the guy with the lake, the guy who charges, the guy who was first. I read it in the morning with breakfast. I read it every morning for months. And I want to tell you that it did not bother me, but the truth is I read every single one of those messages and I remembered a surprising number of them. Then the Heavenly Tao ended newbie protection and the world stopped being a game. Monster waves, daily, not wandering animals, waves, organized, arriving from a direction and hitting your wall until one of you stopped existing. The chat channel changed overnight from arguing about prices to people asking at 4 in the morning how many soldiers is enough and nobody answering because nobody knew. Lords started dying in numbers. I fused my barracks. Blueprints in, mental energy out, faint, wake, again. White into green, green into blue, blue into purple, and on the last fusion, the light did something different, and what settled on the ground in front of me was not a barracks. It was a trap camp, gold quality, unique, which is a word this world uses to mean there is exactly one of these and you are looking at it. Every soldier summoned from it came out with 20% higher attributes than a soldier should have, and I summoned until my gold ran out, and not one of them came out white, blue, purple. Some of them came out gold. I stood in the middle of my own courtyard at midnight with 200 soldiers in front of me, and behind them a general who beat a dynasty, and above us a sky that was going to announce my name again very soon, and I thought about a rabbit that stared me down 4 weeks earlier. Then the scouts came back from the north and said there was a village out there, wolfmen, 25 to 30, walls, watchtowers, a chieftain they called a wolf demon king, and a pile of bones out front that made it clear what happened to travelers. No lord had ever taken a wilderness camp. Not one, anywhere, in the whole world. Everybody knew the camps were there. Everybody had scouted one and gone home. I looked at the report and I asked one question. How much of it can we carry away? We hit the werewolf village at dawn because I had read enough history in my first life to know that people who hunt at night are worst at sunrise. I sent scouts 3 nights running first, not to fight, to count. That is the entire reason this worked, and it is the least interesting decision I have ever made. 3 nights of 2 men lying in wet grass writing down numbers. Here is what the numbers said. The village emptied at dusk and refilled around 4 in the morning. There were never fewer than 11 of them awake, and the wall shift changed every 2 hours, except for one gap at dawn where nobody changed at all, because the shift ending was the shift starting. Everybody on that continent had scouted a wilderness camp. I have since found out that dozens of lords had walked up to one, looked at the wall, and gone home. Nobody had sat outside one for 3 nights with a notebook. Chen Feng took the front with 60 spearmen. I put 100 bamboo shields in a wall behind him, and the archers behind that, and I stood on a rock at the back like a man who has watched a lot of documentaries, and for about 90 seconds it went exactly the way I drew it. Then the Wolf Demon King came out of the big hut. He was 9 feet of muscle with a stone club, and he did not howl. He did not posture. He walked out, looked at my shield wall, and went around it. Straight around the side, at a speed that turned him into a smear, and he was inside my archers before anybody had finished shouting a warning. I lost 4 men in about 6 seconds. I want to be honest about what I did next, because the live stream saw it, and I have heard about it ever since. I did not charge. I did not shout a line. I got off the rock, got behind my own shield wall, and yelled at Chen Feng to turn the whole formation 90 degrees. Because a shield wall is a door, and the trick is not being brave with a door. The trick is putting the door where the thing is. Chen Feng turned 200 men in the middle of a fight like he was rotating a chair. The Wolf Demon King came back through and hit a wall that had not been there a moment ago, and while he was busy with that, Chen Feng put a spear through him from an angle that I still think about sometimes. The village burned by full daylight. The sky announced it before I had even finished counting my dead. First wilderness camp destroyed. Whole world, again. And the reward that came down out of that announcement was not gold and was not a title. It was a shop. I have to explain what that meant, because at the time I did not understand it either. Every lord could trade one-to-one through the channel, painfully, one message at a time, haggling with strangers over 11 units of copper. A shop is a storefront, a permanent, always open, browse and buy storefront that every lord on the continent can walk into from anywhere. There was exactly one in the world, and I named it the Hua Xia Treasure Shop, and the system gave it the number 0000, along with a title, First Merchant. I opened it that night with water, food, seeds, and arrows on the shelves, and I watched the entire continent walk through my door. It sold out in 11 minutes. All of it. Every canteen, every seed, every arrow, gone, and the message board underneath filled up with people demanding to know when I was restocking and calling me a parasite in the same sentence. I sat in front of that message board for a while after the shelves went bare, and I want to describe what I was actually feeling, because it was not triumph. It was a kind of vertigo. Because I had just watched 1 million people walk through a door that only I had, and every single one of them had left something behind, and the total of what they left behind was more than my entire territory had earned in a month, and it had taken 11 minutes, and I had not moved from a chair. Up until that afternoon, I had understood my talent as a way to make better swords. Then I found the recycle function, and that is the moment I stopped being a guy with a lake and became a problem. Because the shop could buy as well as sell. Any lord, anywhere, could dump wood, stone, ore, anything, straight into my warehouse and walk out with gold. And there were 1 million lords out there, all of them broke, all of them sitting on piles of raw material they could not eat. 13 gold a unit for wood. I set it at 13 because 12 felt insulting and 14 felt like charity. By morning, I owned 400,000 units of lumber. The chat channel that day is the single funniest thing I have ever read. Half the continent explaining in enormous detail that I was strangling the free market. The other half of the continent, at the exact same moment, selling me their wood. Some of them were the same people. One man wrote a paragraph about how nobody should trade with the big landlord, and then messaged me privately 8 minutes later asking if I took stone. I took stone. I want to make one thing clear, because this is where people get me wrong. I was not gouging them. I was the only person on that continent who could turn 12 units of nothing into 1 unit of something. So the raw wood in their warehouse was worth exactly nothing to them and quite a lot to me, and I paid them real money for it. Every single one of those transactions made both of us richer. They still hated me. That is fine. I have made peace with being the guy people hate on the way to the checkout. With the lumber, I built the golden seed chain, which is the least dramatic and most important thing I ever did. Purple corn to gold corn. Gold quality food, which matures in 90 minutes, yields 6 times a normal crop and permanently raises an attribute of whoever eats it. Not a buff, not a potion, a permanent point from a vegetable. I put gold quality food on the shelves at a price that made grown men type in all capitals, and then I watched every serious lord on Lord Continent buy it anyway, every single day, forever, because the alternative was watching your neighbors get permanently stronger than you over breakfast. That was the food monopoly. That is the whole economy of the back half of this story. One guy with a cornfield and no shame. Then the 10 times drop week came around again, and I did something I had been thinking about for a while. I stopped hoarding chests and started hunting them at industrial scale. 200 soldiers fanned out across every tree, rock, and cave within a day's march, with orders not to fight anything, just open things. Wild dog packs got cleared for hides, wolf packs for pelts. A buffalo herd got cleared for absolutely no reason except that they were in the way and one of them looked at me. And out of that pile of 10,000 white, quality chests came the black market shop. A building. Gold quality. 3 random items a day, from anywhere, at prices that were sometimes an insult and sometimes a crime in my favor. Space stones, attribute crystals, blueprints for buildings the system had apparently designed and then forgotten to distribute. It became my morning coffee. Every day, 3 doors. Every day I opened all 3. And then the Heavenly Tao ended newbie protection for real, everywhere, and the daily waves stopped being a nuisance and became arithmetic. 3 sides at once on the 5th day. Roughly 10,000 monsters, from the east, the north, and the tree line, all arriving inside the same 4 minutes, which is not how animals behave, and everybody knew it. I stood on the wall with a bow and did the thing I had been practicing in the dark for 2 weeks. War chi, cultivation. The slow, boring, unglamorous grind of sitting cross-legged for 6 hours a night while everyone else slept, building up a reservoir of energy in my chest that I had not yet found a use for. I put it into an arrow. The arrow left the bow with a sound I felt in my teeth and went through 11 monsters in a straight line and kept going and hit the tree line and knocked down a tree. The wall went completely silent. 200 men, dead quiet, watching a tree fall over about 600 meters away. Somewhere on 9 Provinces planet, and I did not know this at the time, roughly 2 million people were watching that same tree, and the comment feed did something the moderators later described as a small technical event. We held the wall. We held it because Chen Feng rotated the formation twice, because bamboo spears are excellent and free, and because I put 9 more arrows into 9 more lines of things, and when the sun came up, there was a semicircle of dead monsters out to 200 meters, and my hands would not stop shaking. That was the morning I understood the shape of this world. It is not a game where you level up until you are safe. There is no safe. There is only whether the next thing arriving is smaller than what you built while it was walking toward you. So I built. Gold coins started arriving in denominations, which meant the system had noticed I had too many to count. Blueprints started dropping continent-wide, and I sat in the trading channel for 6 straight hours buying every single architectural blueprint anyone would sell me at prices that made them think I was an idiot. 200 blueprints. 300. Most of them white-quality garbage for buildings like a laundry pool and a chicken coop. I did not want the buildings. I wanted the material. Because 2 blueprints go into 1 blueprint, and then a man from the eastern country logged into the World Channel and decided to make me his personality. His name in the channel was Ninja Invincible, and he opened by informing the continent that the big landlord's monopoly was a stain on the honor of all lords, that he would be building a superior shop shortly, and that I should enjoy my position while it lasted. I did not reply. I have never once replied. He posted about me 11 times that week. He posted about me the week after. Somewhere in there, he got eaten by an ironback lynx and went home to his own bed on 9 Provinces planet. And the last thing he did before he vanished from the World Channel was post that this was a temporary setback. I mention him because he is the first person who tried to be my rival, and because there were going to be a great many more, and because not one of them ever once managed to make me stop working. I fused arrow blueprints into armor-piercing arrows and put those on the shelves too. And then the scouts found the second wilderness camp. Orcs, bigger than the wolfmen, worse organized, and sitting on a supply depot. I did not do a dawn assault this time. I did not do anything clever. I walked up to their gate with 300 soldiers and a general from the 3 kingdoms, and I let Chen Feng explain the situation to them in the only language they had. 20 minutes. 20 minutes and a supply depot and 140 prisoners, and the only reason it took 20 is that the gate was thick. Then the lizardmen, a week later, in a swamp, which was worse in every way. A swamp takes a shield wall and turns it into a suggestion. My men were in water to the knee, and the lizardmen were not, because lizardmen swim, and the first 11 minutes of that fight were the only 11 minutes of my early career where I genuinely thought I had made a mistake I could not undo. What saved it was Wang Kai. He is a soldier I summoned on day 1 for 100 gold and named after his number, and he had spent 2 months running my water production line, and in a swamp with the line coming apart, he was the one who realized that the lizardmen were only fast in the channels. He got 60 men out of the water and onto the root shelves without being told to. Then he shouted at the rest of us to do the same. I took the order from him. I want that on the record. A man I named after the number 3 shouted a correction at his lord in the middle of a collapsing engagement, and I did what he said, and he was right, and the whole fight turned inside 90 seconds. Afterward, I asked him how he knew. He said, "The water is where they live, my lord. I've been carrying water for 2 months, You start to notice where a thing likes to be. I made him a centurion that afternoon. We took the swamp, and lizard scale makes very good armor, and I now had a blacksmith problem, which is a wonderful problem to have. And then I went back to the Hall of Souls with a mountain of soul value and started spending it. Liu Kang came out first. He is the strongest man I have ever stood next to, and I include everything that comes later in this story. He arrived, looked at my walls, looked at my soldiers, looked at me, and asked if there was anyone here worth fighting. I said not yet. He said, then I will wait, and sat down against a wall, and he was still sitting there the next morning. Gao Lei came out second, and Gao Lei changed everything. Chen Feng is a blade, Liu Kang is a battering ram, Gao Lei is the man who tells you where to put them. Inside 3 days, he had reorganized my entire army into units with names, given every unit a drill schedule, established a supply chain, and politely informed me that my walls were in the wrong place. They were in the wrong place. I moved them. Then Wu Tian. Wu Tian is 8 feet of muscle, carrying 2 hammers that together weigh more than a horse. He has the strategic mind of an enthusiastic dog, and he obeys precisely one person in the universe, which is me. He asked, on arrival, who he was allowed to hit. I said, monsters. He said, and people? I said, only if they come inside the wall. He has quoted that back to me, word for word, roughly 40 times since, usually to other heroes, usually as a threat. Then, Lin Jie. Lin Jie does not fight. Lin Jie walked into my territory, walked around it once, and came back with a list of 11 things I was doing wrong and a plan for each of them, and within a week I stopped knowing how much wood I had because Lin Jie knew, and that was better. I want to say something about him, because he does not get a big scene later, and he deserves one now. Every ridiculous thing I do in the rest of this story, every mountain of loot I dump on the ground and walk away from, every war I fight while my city keeps running, exists because one quiet man with a ledger decided my problems were his job. He never once asked me for anything. By the end of that month, I had a wall, an army, 4 legends, a shop that ate a continent's raw material, and a cornfield that made people permanently stronger. And I still could not have survived one serious fight, and I knew it. And the thing that was going to prove it to me was already sitting in a cave 9 kilometers north, growing. Before the cave, though, I need to tell you about the tiger, because the tiger matters more than most of the war does. I found him on a hunting trip I did not need to be on. Gao Lei had the territory running, Chen Feng had the wilderness, and I had gone out mostly because a man can only sign so many warehouse reports before he starts looking longingly at the door. There was a nest in a rock cleft, and in the nest there was one white cub, about the size of a large house cat, with wings. Wings. On a tiger. He had been abandoned or orphaned, I never found out which, and he was starving, and when I got within 3 meters he stood up on shaking legs and roared at me, and the roar came out as a squeak, and he was so embarrassed by this that he sat down. I want the record to show that I did not plan to keep him. I gave him a piece of dried meat to feel better about myself, and then I turned around to leave, and there was a small white weight attached to my boot. His name is Huzi, which means furball, and he has never forgiven me for it. He was a green quality flying white tiger, which in the terms of this world means a decent pet that would top out around the strength of a good soldier. So I fed him gold quality corn every day for a month, and then I started fusing. Beast cores, hides, spirit meat, every scrap of monster material my army dragged home. Into the tiger. Green to blue. Blue to purple. Purple stopped for 4 days because I ran out of mental energy and had to go back to fusing apples first, which is its own story. And then, one night, the light did that different thing again, and what stood up out of it was not a flying white tiger. Ancient white tiger. Gold quality. 9 feet at the shoulder, wings like a barn door, and the same absolute lack of dignity. He knocked me over. That was his first act as an ancient apex predator. He came out of a column of light that shook the walls, turned around, saw me, and knocked me flat on my back in the dirt and put his enormous head on my chest. 2 million people on 9 provinces planet saw that. I have been informed at length. He is genuinely terrifying now. He has killed things that would have ended my entire army. He also refuses to walk anywhere if flying is available, sulks visibly when told to stay on the ground, and once carried a corpse 3 kilometers back to camp to show me, like a cat, and waited for praise. I gave him the praise. Obviously, I gave him the praise. What was I going to do? The Hall of Souls kept opening after that, because the soul value kept coming in, because the monsters kept coming. Joe High came out with a shield skill called God's Shield, which is a wall of golden light that grows to whatever size he can afford to pay for, and the first thing he did on arrival was ask where the weakest part of my wall was. Not who is the enemy, not what are my orders. Where is the weakest part of the wall? I told him the north gate. He went and stood at the north gate. He was still there 4 hours later, and I had to send somebody to tell him that he was allowed to eat. Yang Shu came out about an hour after that, took one look at Joe High standing at a gate, and said, "Is he a door?" They have been arguing since that sentence. It has not stopped. It is not going to stop. The arrangement is that Joe High holds and Yang Shu hits, and they insult each other continuously while doing it, and I have watched Yang Shu take a strike meant for Joe High twice, and both times he complained about it for a week afterward. Neither of them will accept a position where the other one is out of sight. Neither of them has ever admitted that this is on purpose. Han Tao came out with a bow. He was polite about it. He asked whether I would like a demonstration, and I said yes, mostly to be nice, and he asked somebody to put a coin on a post at what turned out to be 300 meters. He missed. Then he apologized for the wind, adjusted, and put the next one through the middle of it, and then did it twice more without pausing, and I stood there with my mouth slightly open, holding my own extremely proud green quality longbow. Guo Ping came out and said nothing at all. I need to talk about Guo Ping for a second. Every hero in my territory has a personality. Guo Ping has a temperature. He is polite. He is quiet. He answers questions in 6 words. And when the fighting starts, something goes out behind his eyes and does not come back until it is over. Jiang Wu, who is the single most arrogant man I have ever employed, will not stand within 4 meters of Guo Ping in a fight. And Jiang Wu has never explained why and does not have to. Wu Chang came out and I sent him straight to Coal Mountain City to hold a second position. Because by then I had a second position, which still felt insane to say out loud. Ho Jian and the Duke of Zhou came out on the same day, and between them and Lin Jie, my territory stopped being a camp and became a state. Laws, courts, a census, grain reserves with actual numbers on them. I walked into a meeting one afternoon, and there were 3 ancient statesmen arguing about tax policy in my dining room, and I quietly closed the door and went outside. And then Kwang. Kwang is the reason I win most of this story, and he never once picks up a weapon. He is a builder, that is all. He came out of the Hall of Souls, and every other hero I have ever summoned opened with a greeting and a bow. Kwang walked straight past me and put his hand flat on my city wall. He stood there a while with his palm on the stone. Then he said to the wall, "Who laid this?" "I did." He walked 11 paces and put his hand on it again. "It will hold. It will hold badly. Give me wood, iron, and permission." That was the entire conversation. He never actually greeted me. I have known him for months, and I am not certain he has ever said my name. 11 days later, I had catapults on my walls. Not 1, 16. Then, automatic arrow towers that track and fire on their own if you feed them crystal cores, which he built after asking me exactly one question, which was whether my soldiers get tired. Then a tile shop. Then an artifact pavilion that makes every blacksmith who works inside it permanently better at blacksmithing, which he described to me, on delivery, as a small idea. I put the catapults on the shop. That is the moment my income stopped being large and became stupid. Because every lord on that continent was getting hit by monster waves every single night, and I was the only person in the world who could sell them a machine that throws a rock 400 meters. There was a queue. There was an actual queue in a chat channel of people waiting to give me money. And some of them were the same people who had spent the previous month explaining that I was a parasite. One of them, and I will not name him, opened his order by typing, "I still think you are a bloodsucker," and then ordered 6. I sent him 7. I never told him why. It was funnier that way. Then Xian Li came out of the Hall of Souls, and my personal guard problem got solved permanently. She is the coldest person I have ever met, and I mean that as praise. Silver armor, a straight back, and a way of saying, "Yes, my lord," that makes you feel like you should probably have thought your order through more carefully. She took one look at my bodyguards, dismissed all of them, and asked for a barracks of her own. The Medusa barracks. Snake women, no legs, faster on the ground than a horse, and disciplined the way a knife is sharp. She trained the men and the women separately because she said they fight differently, And she was right. And inside a month, I had a guard unit that could clear a room without being told which room. Then Jiang Wu, Zhou Lei, Xu Dong, Wei Jun, and Ma Li came out in one enormous week, and my war roster was full, and the sound in my training grounds every morning was 20 legends hitting each other. Somewhere in there we found the undead dungeon. 3 runs a day, resets every morning, and the boss at the bottom drops crystal cores. Crystal cores are the batteries of this world. Every workshop, every arrow tower, every good building runs on them, and nobody has enough, ever. And here was a hole in the ground that printed them 3 times a day. I ran it myself for the first month, then I stopped needing to. The blacksmiths came next. A talent market that spits out craftsmen for 100 gold a head, an artifact pavilion that makes them better, and a man named Li Guojun, who I put in charge and then never had to think about again. 6,000 blacksmiths eventually. 20,000 later. My territory passed 20 levels. The walls had to be moved twice. Population crossed 50,000, which meant houses, which meant 100,000 units of wood a week just to keep roofs over people. And I remember standing on the wall at sunset, looking at chimney smoke going up in rows, and having a genuinely stupid moment about it. 2 months earlier, I had 10 men named Zhang. And then the scouts came back white. There was something in the northern hills. Gold quality, which is a word I had only ever seen on my own things. The scouts had not gotten close. They had watched it from a ridge, watched it pick up a boulder the size of a cart, and watched it throw the boulder at nothing in particular, apparently for fun. Vajra Monkey King. Level 50. The first gold quality boss anyone on Lord Continent had ever laid eyes on. Gao Lei, Chen Feng, Liu Kang, Guo Ping, and I stood around a map for 4 hours that night, and the argument was not whether to fight it. The argument was arithmetic. Gao Lei's position was that we should leave it for 2 months. My position was that in 2 months it would still be there, and I would not be meaningfully stronger, and that the reward for a world-first gold boss was going to be worth more than 2 months of grinding, and that I was tired of being a merchant who was scared of a hill. Liu Kang's position was that he would like to fight it now, please. We mobilized everything, every hero, every soldier, 8,000 men, 16 catapults dragged 9 kilometers over broken ground, arrow towers built on site out of prefabricated parts because Kwang had thought of that, and a supply line running back to the city that Lin Jie organized in one afternoon and never mentioned again. The fight took 4 hours. I have never been so tired in 3 lifetimes. It opened badly. Gao Lei had the catapults zeroed in overnight, and the first volley was perfect, all 16, dead on, and it took the whole thing across the chest and shoulders in a cloud of dust and broken rock. The dust cleared, and it was brushing itself off. That is what it did. It stood there, 9 meters of it, and brushed the dust off its own forearm the way you would flick lint, and then it looked down the hill at 8,000 people and made a sound that was not a roar. It was a huff. It was the sound of a man finding out the meeting is going to run long. Volley 2, Gao Lei said, in the same voice he uses to ask for tea. Volley 2 did nothing either, and it charged. 9 meters of gold-quality monster coming downhill at a shield wall, and Zhou Hai walked out in front of 8,000 men on his own and put up God's shield. I want to describe the noise. It was not a crash. A crash is quick. This was a long, grinding roar that went on for about 3 seconds, and Zhou Hai went backward 12 meters with his boots plowing 2 furrows in the ground, and at the end of it, he was still standing, and the shield was still up, and there was blood coming out of both his ears. He held. "Ran Min!" he screamed, and Yang Shu was already in the air, over the top of the shield, and put a blade into the thing's shoulder joint, and hung there while it tried to shake him off a wall of its own muscle. And that set the pattern for 4 hours. Hold, hit, fall back. Reload, hold again. Hour 1 was Gao Lei finding the range. Every 20 minutes, the whole formation moved 80 meters, and the catapults moved with it, because Gao Lei had worked out inside the first 10 minutes that the monster would always charge the largest concentration of noise. And so he spent 4 hours moving the largest concentration of noise into places where the ground was bad. Hour 2 was Liu Kang. He had been waiting for months, and he went in against something twice his size with a spear and a look on his face that I never want aimed at me. He broke its left arm in the second hour. Genuinely broke it, at the joint, with a strike that I heard from 300 meters away, and it turned around and hit him with the other one and put him into a rock formation and broke 3 of his ribs. He got up. It took him a while, and Han Tao had to help, and he got up, and he went back in, and I did not have the standing to order him to stop. Han Tao put 2 arrows in its eyes in hour 3, which sounded like the turning point, and was not, because it fought blind for 40 minutes, and it was worse blind. It stopped tracking targets and started sweeping. A blind thing that size does not need to aim. It just needs to be in the same field as you. That was where most of the 400 died. Not in a heroic exchange. In a 40-minute window where a blinded animal was clearing ground by feel, and the shield wall could not fall back fast enough because falling back meant abandoning the catapult crews. Chen Feng went in and out of its reach so many times I stopped counting. He was never once touched. He never once got through the hide either, and around hour 3 I watched him come back to the line and stand next to Gao Lei with his face completely blank, and I understood that Chen Feng had just worked out that he personally could not solve this, and had decided not to say so out loud where the soldiers could hear. I stood at the back on a rock and fed the machine. That is my whole contribution to the greatest battle of my life. Catapults left, arrow towers to the ridge. 3rd rank forward, 2nd rank drink and sit down, medical to the left flank, somebody get water to the crews. And arrows. Hundreds of them, every single one carrying every scrap of war chi I could scrape out of my chest, which at that point in my life was not very much, and I fired anyway. By hour 4, my fingers had split open on the string, and I had stopped noticing, and Xian Li came up behind me, took the bow out of my hands without asking permission, and wrapped both of them while I stood there arguing with her about it. "My lord, you cannot draw." "I can draw." "You are drawing with bone." She was correct. I let her. We did not outfight it. I want to be extremely clear about that, because the live stream told it as a triumph, and it was not a triumph. We ground it down. 8,000 men and 20 legends and 4 hours of pure attrition, and at the end of it, the thing was still swinging. It never slowed down. It never got tired. It went down because Guo Ping found the same wound Liu Kang had opened in hour 2 and put 5 strikes into it in a row without changing expression, and it died on its feet because it ran out of body before we ran out of people. The cheer that went up was enormous. I did not join in. We lost 400 soldiers. I read that number in Lin Jie's report the next morning, and I read it about 9 times. 400 men who came out of a barracks because I paid 100 gold, who had names, who had drill schedules and bunks and jobs, and who are not people the way you and I are people, except that they absolutely are. The sky gave me a world announcement and a skill, Vajra power, consumes war chi continuously, multiplies strength by 10 and everything else by 5 for as long as you can feed it. I looked at the reward, and I looked at the casualty list, and the thought I had was not victory. The thought I had was, I needed 20 legends and 8,000 men and 4 hours to kill one monster, and this is the weakest gold thing in the world, and there is an entire world. That was the night I stopped building a city and started building a weapon. The weapon started with a prison, which is not where I expected it to start either. Here was my problem. Every camp we cleared gave us prisoners. Wolfmen, orcs, lizardmen, hundreds of them, sitting in pens, eating my food and doing nothing, because a prisoner with a loyalty rating of 4 is a man who will put a rock through your skull the moment you hand him a shovel. Lin Jie brought me the numbers on a morning when I was already in a bad mood. 640 mouths, he said, no output, and the pens need guards, so it is actually a negative. So we let them go. They will come back with friends. So we do not let them go. Then we feed them forever. He said it without any judgment at all, which is somehow worse. Lin Jie never argues. He just puts the shape of the problem on the table and waits for you to look at it. I looked at it for 2 days. Then I built the heavenly prison. It came out of a blueprint I had fused up from a pile of junk, and I had built it mostly because it was gold quality, and I had space. The description said that anyone imprisoned inside would have their loyalty raised over time, whether they liked it or not. I want to sit with that for a second, because I did. It is not torment. There is no cruelty in it. It is a building that quietly, over weeks, makes a man decide he belongs to you. And the first time I read that description, I stood in front of it and thought very clearly that if somebody ever built one of these with me inside, I would want somebody to burn it down. Then I put 640 prisoners in it because I had a wall to hold and a continent that wanted my lake. I'm not going to pretend that was a hard decision after the second day. That is the thing about this place. It sands you down one reasonable choice at a time. 90 days later, the loyalty readings crossed 90, and I started letting them out in batches. I went down for the first release because I wanted to see it myself. I told myself it was due diligence. It was not due diligence. It was that I had made a decision 3 months earlier that I had never entirely put down, and I wanted to look at what it had produced. The first man out of the gate was an orc named Crag. I knew him. That is the thing. I knew him because 4 months earlier he had come at me over the top of a barricade at the orc camp with a chunk of iron on a stick, in a genuine and completely reasonable attempt to remove my head, and Chen Feng had put him on the ground. He came out into the daylight and looked around at my city, the workshops, the smoke, the wall. Then he walked over to me, and I did not reach for anything, which took some doing. Lord. Crag. There is a forest north of here. He said it like a man raising a scheduling conflict. Your people are cutting it wrong. They take the straight ones first. In 4 years, there will be nothing there but bent trees, and you will wonder why. I stood there for a second. Are you asking me for a job? I am telling you, your forest is being ruined, he said. The job is a separate conversation. He runs my northern lumber operation now. He is genuinely, spectacularly annoying about quotas. He came into a meeting once and interrupted the Duke of Zhou to complain about cart allocation, and the Duke of Zhou let him finish, which I have never let Crag find out about. And I do not know what to do with that. Because here is the honest shape of it. He is happier than he was. He has a house and a title and a stake in a place that works, and he will tell you so if you ask, and he means it. And also, a building did that to him. He did not walk out of that prison and choose me. The building spent 90 days quietly rearranging the part of him that chooses. I have never once asked him whether he remembers the barricade. That is not because I think he does not. It is because I am fairly sure he does, and that he does not mind anymore, and I am not ready to find out how that feels from the other side of the table. And in among them, in the deepest pen, were the rhinoceroses. Earthcrack dragon rhinoceros. 4 of them, taken out of the lizard man swamp, each the size of a small building, each entirely uninterested in being ridden by anybody. They had been in there the longest. When the prison finally finished with them, they came out and stood in the yard and waited to be told what to do. Gao Lei came and looked at them for a long time without saying anything. My lord, he said eventually, do you know what these are? Extremely large. They are cavalry. And that is how the tiger leopard cavalry started. 4 mounts, then 40 as the prison chewed through the rest, then a few hundred because they came out at a rate of about 100 a week, and Gao Lei took every single one and put it into a training program that he wrote from scratch in one night. I went down to watch them drill in the second week. 300 armored riders on animals that shake the ground, wheeling in a line across my parade field, and the noise of it came up through my boots and into my chest. I stood next to Gao Lei, and I said something stupid like, they look good. Gao Lei said, they are not ready. Ask me in a year. He has said, ask me in a year about roughly everything. Once, about a formation, he said, ask me in 3. I have learned to hear it as a compliment to the project. We needed more mounts than the prison could produce, so I built Mount Prairie, which is a grassland that spawns random animals every day, which sounds wonderful until you learn that taming is a skill with a success rate, and my success rate was garbage. I burned 400 taming attempts in 1 week and got 11 mounts and a bite. Meanwhile, the friend group happened, and I did not see it coming. It started because of the shop. People who bought from me regularly started messaging me directly, and then messaging each other, and at some point, somebody made a group and put me in it without asking. Wu Chen, who runs a territory in the mountains, and who once bought 40,000 gold of pills at 3 in the morning and then apologized for the hour. Lin Shu, who is 22 and has been on Lord Continent longer than she was ever in a job. Zhao Gang, Song Hao, Merong Jing, who introduced herself by informing the group that she had decided to be my wife and has never once retracted it. Xiao Ning, who is elegant in a way that makes rooms behave, and Bai Li Hua, who is the second strongest lord in the world and who types like a woman filling in a form. 40 people, eventually. All of us from the same planet. All of us the only human being from home within 1,000 kilometers of ourselves. I did not understand what that group was for until about the 4th month, when Lin Shu went quiet for 6 days and then posted at 2 in the morning that she had not heard another person from Earth say her actual name out loud since she arrived. Her soldiers call her my lord. Her advisors call her my lord. She had been my lord for 111 days. That is the thing about this world that the live stream never gets across. Every one of us is a king. Every one of us is completely alone. Anyway. That group also made me obscene amounts of money, because it turns out that when 40 of the strongest lords on a continent all trade exclusively through one man, that man ends up with a working capital problem that is measured in billions. And then the Heavenly Tao dropped the Lord Challenge on all of us at once. 40 floors, 1 entrant per territory, no soldiers, no heroes, just you. Rewards escalating per floor. The announcement went to every lord in the world simultaneously, and the World Channel had a genuine seizure. I went in on the first morning. Floors 1 through 10 were monsters, and I do not remember them. Floor 11 was a room with no exit and a riddle, which took me 20 minutes and cost me a great deal of dignity. Floor 14 was a bridge over nothing with a wind that changed direction if you looked at it. I met Bai Li Hua on floor 16. She was fighting 3 armored things at once and losing slowly, in a controlled, competent, completely doomed way, and I put an arrow through one of them from the doorway, and she did not even turn around. She just adjusted, killed the second, and let me have the third. Afterward, she looked at me and said, "Li Ming, Bai Li Hua, your shop overcharges. Your territory buys anyway." She almost smiled. That was the entire conversation. We cleared 4 floors together and did not exchange another word until floor 20. Murong Jing joined us on 19, arriving by falling through a ceiling. Xiao Ning on 22, entirely uninjured and slightly bored. Fang Mei on 25, bleeding, furious, and refusing help for 2 full floors before she took it. Floors 26 through 38 are the part I do not like talking about. They stopped being monsters. They became choices. Floor 26 was 2 doors and a counter that said 1. Not 1 at a time, 1. 5 of us in a room, and a door that would admit a single person, and above it, a timer. And when the timer ran out, everyone still in the room went home. We stood there for 11 seconds arguing before Xiao Ning said quietly, "It is a test of who talks first." And it was. The moment somebody nominated somebody else, the counter changed to 5, and both doors opened. It cost 11 seconds, and none of us ever mentioned what we had each been about to say. Floor 29 was water. The room filled from the floor at exactly the speed of the slowest person in it, which meant it was never quite drowning you and never quite letting you rest. And by the far end, we had picked up 2 other lords who had been stuck there for a while. A man from the northern countries, and a girl who never told us her name. Floor 30 was a bridge with no rail, in wind, and the man from the north got about halfway and stopped. Not fell, stopped. He locked up, hands out, 300 meters over nothing, and would not move in either direction. Murong Jing went back for him. She walked out onto that bridge in the wind, took his wrist, put it on her shoulder, and walked him across backward, talking the whole way about absolutely nothing. Her territory, her stupid neighbors, what she was going to eat when she got home. He got across. He thanked her about 9 times. And then on floor 31, there was a room where the way forward required somebody to hold a lever, and the person holding the lever does not go through. And he looked at the lever, and he looked at us, and he ran. Not to the lever, to the exit, ahead of everyone, to be through it before anyone could suggest anything. The girl whose name I never learned went after him. Neither of them made floor 32. The lever room was not the test. The next room was, and it was a fight, and it was a fight that 5 people win and 2 people lose, and they had made themselves 2 people about 90 seconds earlier. I have thought about that more than once. They did not die. They woke up at home, safe, in their own beds, which is what everybody on that continent said they wanted. Floor 35 was a corridor with a ceiling coming down and a gap that opened on the far side, and Fang Mei was closest to it, and Murong Jing was not, and Fang Mei took a strike across the back that was aimed at Murong Jing, and neither of them said one word about it, then or ever. I only know because I was behind them both. Floor 37 was a door that had to be held. Bai Li Hua held it. Her sword had broken 12 minutes earlier on 36, and she held that door with the broken half of it and a shield she had taken off something dead, and she held it long enough for 4 people to get through, and when I turned around and went back for her, she was still on her feet in the gap. She said, "You took your time." 2 lords we picked up on floor 29 were gone by 31. And I do not mean killed. I mean, they made a decision and ran, and both of them were eliminated on the next floor anyway, which I have thought about more than once. On floor 35, Fang Mei took a hit meant for Murong Jing, and neither of them ever mentioned it again. On 37, Bai Li Hua held a door with a sword she had broken 12 minutes earlier, while I got the other 3 through, and when I came back for her, she was still standing there, and she said, "You took your time." Floor 39 ended all 4 of them inside 90 seconds. I want to describe it properly. It was not a monster. It was a pressure. The floor started applying a weight, more and more of it, and the rule was that when your knees touched the ground, you were out and you went home. That is all. No fight, no trick, just how much can you carry? Murong Jing went first, and she was laughing about it, which is very her. Xiao Ning went second and said, "Sorry," which broke my heart a little. Fang Mei went down hard and swearing. Bai Li Hua lasted 40 extra seconds after everyone else, and I watched her do it. She got both hands on her own thigh and pushed against her own leg to keep it locked. Her arms were shaking. She looked over at me, and she was not asking for help, and she was not saying goodbye. She was checking whether I was still up. I was still up. She said, "Then go," and her knee touched the floor, and she was gone. I stood in an empty room under a weight that had just removed the 4 strongest lords in the world, and I could not have told you why I was still standing. I have gone over it 100 times since. Best answer I have is gold-quality corn, eaten every single day for months, 1 permanent point at a time, in a field, while people called me a landlord. Floor 40 was a door. That is all it was. A door, and no enemy, and a line of text that said the challenge was complete. I want to tell you I felt triumphant. What I actually felt, standing alone in a room where 5 of us had walked in, was tired and slightly sick. The reward came down, and it was not gold, and it was not a title. It was a passport. 30 days of access to a place called the Myriad Races Divine City. Another world. Not another region, another world, 1 tier up, where the things that live there consider Lord Continent to be a rural district. The world announcement went out with my name on it, and the friend group exploded before I had even left the tower. Murong Jing typed, "Of course it was him." Wu Chen typed, 40 floors. 40! I got to 11. Fang Mei typed something I will not repeat, and Bai Li Hua, an hour later, typed 1 line, privately, which I still have. Bring back something worth the 40 seconds. Here is what I expected the Myriad Races Divine City to be. A bigger town, fancier walls, some elves. Here is what it actually was. I stepped out of a teleport array onto a street, and the street was 300 meters wide, and above the street there were 4 more streets, stacked, each of them hanging in the air on nothing, and above those there was a district, and above that there were clouds, and above the clouds there was more city. I stood there like a man who has just walked out of an airport in a country whose language he has confidently studied for 6 weeks. And then a person walked past me who was 11 feet tall and made of stone, and behind him something with 6 arms was arguing about the price of fish. I checked my own information out of pure reflex, the way you pat your pocket for your wallet. Human, racial combat power ranking, outside the top 5,000, 5,000 races, and mine is not in the top 5,000. That number did something to me that I did not enjoy. Back home I was the strongest lord alive, world first at 9 separate things, the man the entire continent complained about at breakfast. Here I was a tourist from a species nobody had heard of, standing in the outer district, which is the part of the city they let visitors into, which is roughly the loading dock. Nobody was hostile. That is the part that stung. Nobody was hostile because nobody noticed. A guard glanced at my level, categorized me, and went back to being bored. So I did the only thing I have ever been good at. I went shopping. The Lingzhou Grand Hotel is the trade house in the outer district, and the woman who runs it is named Serafina, and she is elegant in a way that made me aware of my boots. She gave me 11 minutes of her time as a courtesy, and I spent the first 2 of them asking what a human could possibly sell in a city like this. She was too polite to laugh. So I put a bar of soap on the table. I want you to understand the soap. It was ordinary soap. My territory makes it by the crate. It costs me under a gold coin. I had brought a bag of assorted household goods purely because I had been packing at 3 in the morning and grabbed things. Serafina picked it up. She turned it over. She smelled it. Her eyebrows moved about 2 millimeters, which I would later learn is Serafina having a strong emotional reaction. What is the production volume? How much do you want? That is when the elf princess walked in. Her name is Anya. She is a buyer for one of the inner city houses, and she had come down to the outer district that afternoon for something completely unrelated. She saw the soap on the table. She asked what it was. Serafina, who is a professional, said nothing at all and let me answer. 90 minutes later, I had sold Anya 11,000 bars of soap, 40,000 toothbrushes, an entire pallet of toothpaste, 600 mirrors, and every towel my territory owned, at a markup I am not going to say out loud because I still have to live with myself. Here is why, and it took me 2 days to figure out. The myriad races Divine City can make anything. Magic swords, flying ships, pills that add a century to your life. What it cannot do, what nobody there has ever bothered to do, is mass-produce cheap, disposable garbage for ordinary people. Every one of their crafters is an artist, not one of them is a factory. I am a factory. I am 800,000 square meters of factory with a cornfield attached. Gnome Arthur was next, and Gnome Arthur is my favorite person in that city. He is about a meter tall, blue, runs a bulk distribution operation, and he negotiated with me for 4 hours over daily necessities like a man defusing a bomb. At the end of it, he shook my hand with both of his and said, "You are going to make me wealthy, and I am going to make you a problem for somebody." He was right on both counts. Then Sima Chao. She runs Mingyue Pavilion. She is the most composed human being I have ever done business with, and she came to me, which I understood the significance of about a week later. She sat down, ordered tea, and said, "You are the one selling the soap." I am. I do not want soap. I want to know what you want. So I told her. Pills, cultivation techniques, crystal cores, materials, everything my continent cannot make, in every quantity she can find, and I will pay in gold, and I will not haggle. She said, "How much gold?" I said, "How much do you have?" She did not laugh either. She said, "I will prepare a batch," and she left. And 4 days later, she came back with storage bags containing 10 billion gold coins of merchandise, and the tea went cold while I traded for all of it. That relationship is the single most profitable thing in my life. She moved 30 billion in 1 week at her peak, mobilized a dozen other houses to fill my orders, and she never once tried to cheat me, and I never once tried to cheat her, and both of us knew what the other one was. Manhua came in through her. So did Dragon Jingwei, who greets me as Brother Li Ming every single time and has never once been sober before noon, and Cai Bo, and half a dozen others. A cartel formed around me inside 2 weeks, and the smallest single transaction I made in the back half of that month was 7 billion gold. And then Elian Vance, the Void Clan equipment master, who does not sell anything. He makes space equipment, storage bags, spatial rings, pockets in reality that hold 1,000 cubic meters. On Lord Continent, a single white quality storage bag sells for 1 million gold, and there are maybe 40 of them in existence. I asked him for 200. He looked at me for a long moment and then said, very gently, "Young man, do you know what these are made of?" "No. Space stone. There is no substitute and there is no synthesis." He held up one finger. "I have been on a waiting list for material for 11 years. So that was the wall. Not money. Money had stopped being a wall weeks ago. Material. Remember that. It comes back." But none of that is why the Divine City matters, and I did not find out why until I walked into the administration hall to renew my visitor pass and read the notice board out of boredom. There is a permanent teleportation array, a private one. A lord can apply for one that links his own world to this city, forever, both directions, no expiry. I read the requirements 4 times. 100 million merit points, 100,000 reputation, 10,000 racial charisma. I had 2,200 merit points, most of them from handing in a lost bag. Let me put that in scale for you. Merit is not money. You cannot buy it, trade it, or fuse it. You earn it by doing work for the city, and the standard courier mission pays about 80. At 80 a run, working every waking hour, I would have the array in something over 4,000 years. And in 26 days, my pass expired, and the door closed, and I went back to being a man on a continent with a lake. I stood in front of that notice board for a while, because here is the thing. I had just spent 2 weeks learning what my world actually is. Lord Continent is not a world. It is a nursery. It is a shelf in a much larger building, and everything on it, every gold quality boss and world first announcement and mountain of treasure is worth about what soap is worth, and there is a door out, and the door has a price on it. I went to the army hall and asked what the highest paying merit work was. The clerk did not look up. War. Where? Dawn Outpost. 3 factions, contested battlefield, merit per kill plus a battlefield bonus. Now he looked up. Human? Yes. Level? 47. He put down his pen and gave me a look that I am going to be honest with you about, because it is the look that this entire second half of the story is built out of. It was not contempt. Contempt would have been fine. It was pity. Sign here, he said. The forms are prepaid. It saves the family the trouble. Dawn City is a fortress sitting on the edge of a fog bank, and the fog bank is the battlefield. 3 factions. Us, meaning the myriad races divine city. Angel City in the west. Demon City in the south. Everybody kills everybody, forever, until one faction's city crystal breaks and that faction is out. And here is the mechanic that makes it a machine instead of a war. Nobody stays dead. The battlefield resets the fallen at midnight and sends them home to their own city. But it does not reset their belongings. Whatever you are carrying stays on the ground. So it is not a war. It is a market where the currency is people, and the entire population of 3 cities has agreed to participate because the merit rates are the best in the world, and everyone has something they need to buy. I walked through the Dawn City gate at 8 in the morning with a spear on my back and a tiger folded into a pet space, and I did not know one single person there, except that somebody said hello. She was leaning on a wall by the muster ground, a sprite spirit, orange and white, with a tail she kept absolutely still in a way I later learned takes effort. She looked at me, and she did the thing that nobody in that entire city had done, which is that she looked at my face before she looked at my level. You are new. I am. You are human. I am aware. She laughed. It was a good laugh. I am Willow Sprite. Do you have a squad? I did not have a squad. That is the whole problem with the merit battlefield. It is squad work. You join a team of 10 to 20, you go out together, you split the take, and you come back. And nobody goes out alone, because going out alone is a way of donating your equipment to strangers. She took me to her squad. I am going to describe the next 4 minutes carefully, because they are the reason for everything that happens afterward. There were 11 of them sitting around a fire pit. A Lightning Clan man, big, easy, the kind of guy who is friendly right up until the moment he is not. 2 ancient clan brothers, a stone giant, some others. Their captain looked up when Willow Sprite walked over with me, and he was smiling, and he kept smiling the whole way through. Captain, this is Li Ming. He needs a squad. The captain looked at me, then at my level. No. Willow Sprite said, he is strong. He is level 47. The captain said it kindly. That is what I want you to understand. He said it the way you tell a child the stove is hot. Little Sprite, out there the weakest thing you meet is level 60. Bringing him is not charity, it is a hole in my line. You have not seen him fight. I have seen him walk. He turned back to the fire. Human, go find the courier board. There is honest work on it. You will still be alive next week. She tried 3 more squads. 3. The second one laughed. Not cruelly, they just laughed, all of them at once, in the way that people laugh when somebody has made a category error. The third one told her, in front of me, that she was going to get her friend killed to feel good about herself, and one of them added, and then she will cry about it, and that got a bigger laugh than anything I had heard all morning. Willow Sprite's ears went flat and her tail did not move at all. Here's the part I am not proud of. I did not defend her. I did not say anything. I stood there with my hands at my sides and let a stranger take a beating on my behalf from her own squad mates, because I had already decided what I was going to do, and there was no version of saying it out loud that did not sound insane. When it was over, she turned to me with her jaw set, ready to fight the whole muster ground about it, and I said, "It is fine." "It is not fine." "Willow Sprite." I put my hand out. She looked at it. "Thank you, genuinely. You are the first person in this city who talked to me." Then I walked to the gate on my own. I heard it start behind me before I was through the arch. Somebody said, "He is going out," and somebody else said, "Alone." and then the sound that a crowd makes when it has decided something is funny went up behind my back and followed me all the way into the fog. The captain shouted after me, and I will give him this, he actually meant it kindly. He shouted, "Human, turn around. Nobody will think less of you." I did not turn around because I did not want him to see my face. I was not angry. I want to be very precise about this because the live stream got it wrong and the comment feed still gets it wrong. I was not storming off in a rage to prove anything to anybody. I was doing arithmetic. A squad splits the merit and splits the loot. A squad moves at the speed of its slowest member. A squad has to be protected. And I had 26 days to earn a number that 4,000 years of courier work would not touch. And I had a gold quality body technique, 11 gold skills, a flying tiger, and a bag containing more disposable consumables than most armies see in a year. The reason nobody goes out alone is that alone you get surrounded. I had never once in my life had a problem with being surrounded. Surrounded means everything within 400 meters is a legitimate target and I do not have to check my line of fire. 5 minutes into the fog, I found 3 angels. Angel tribe. Level 62, 65, 66. All 3 of them in gleaming plate with white wings, hanging in the air about 40 meters up, and they saw me and came down in a lazy spiral like men who have found a dog on a golf course. The one in front said, "Little human, are you lost?" I put an arrow through his throat before he finished the sentence. Armor-piercing killing arrow, which is a gold skill, fired from a bow he had not even registered as a threat, and the golden light went through the front of his gorget and out the back of his neck, and kept going another 60 meters into the fog. The other 2 did not react for a full second. I want you to appreciate that second. They were so far above me in the racial rankings that their bodies genuinely did not have a threat response ready. The second one I got in the air on the way to me. The third one made it to about 8 meters and got the silver moon spear through the gap under his arm. And I want to be clear that this is not a hard target. It is just a target that people do not aim for because they are busy being scared of the wings. Merit points appeared in my vision 3 times, 55, 53, 58, plus battlefield bonus. I stood in the fog next to 3 sets of armor worth more than my first month on Lord Continent, and I did the sum out loud like an idiot. 176 merit points in 11 seconds. The courier board pays 80 for a day. I have never in my life felt so relieved and so stupid at the same time because I had genuinely been prepared for this to be a catastrophic mistake, and instead I had just found out that the entire economy of this battlefield was built on the assumption that levels mean something. Levels do not mean anything. Levels mean how much the system likes you. What means something is whether every single item you own has been fused 9 times. Then I looted them, which is the part nobody in Dawn City was talking about, and which turned out to be the actual business. 20,000 gold on the first one, 60 on the second. The third one had a spatial ring. I got about 90 seconds of feeling clever before the fog opened up and 12 of them came out of it at once. 12, plus 3 beast pets. Elites, all of them. And this time they had seen the merit notifications and they were not spiraling down lazily. They were in a proper cordon, and the mage in the back had her hands up before I had finished turning around. Ice. A wall of it, the width of the whole clearing, coming in low. I put up Earth Shield and it went over and around me and shaved the top off a boulder, and I heard somebody laughing and somebody else saying, "Take his legs," and I used the "you long body" technique. That skill is a dragon swimming through water, and it is gold quality and level 30, and what it looks like from the outside is that a man stops being where he was. I went up. Straight up, over the top of the cordon, and landed on absolutely nothing in the air above their heads, which is a thing you can do for about 1 second if you push off hard enough, and 1 second is enough. Somebody screamed that I was above them, which meant that all 12 of them looked up, and their mage, who was the only one of them who mattered, looked up too. I threw 2 white quality spears, ordinary ones, junk. I buy them in bulk from my own shop. Gunburst technique does not care about the quality of the spear, it cares about the war key you wrap around it. And what it does is turn the spear into a delivery mechanism for an explosion. The first one went at the mage. The second went 60 meters left at the priest because a knight was already moving to cover the mage, and I had watched him decide to do it. He got there. He got there in time, and he was very good, and he put a gray shield up and stopped the spear dead in the air in front of her, and I watched his face go through the entire process of realizing that stopping it was not the point. 2 craters, 4 dead, 2 more knocked flat. Then I came down through the smoke with the 9-wheel flying moon slash and put 9 crescents of gold across a clearing full of people who had all been looking upward. 5 left, out of 12. And they bunched. Everybody bunches. It is the worst thing you can do, and everybody does it. Hudze came out of the fog above them like a barn falling over. He had been circling for a minute and a half. He does that. He waits until they are grouped, and then he arrives. And the psychological effect of 9 feet of white tiger dropping into a huddle is worth more than the damage. 2 of them ran. One of them got a scroll about halfway out of his belt before an arrow found him. The last one nearly made it, I have to give him that. He had a fire scroll, and he used it properly, dumped a sea of flame behind him to cover his exit, and he was genuinely fast, and I put Golden Bell cover up and walked through the fire and threw a spear at his back from 90 meters with no skill on it at all, just a throw. Sometimes it is just a throw. Then I sat down on a rock in a clearing full of dead elites and went through their pockets for 11 minutes. 300,000 gold in the spatial ring, skill books, and a cultivation manual, white quality, which does not sound like anything until you know that a white cultivation manual cannot be bought on Lord Continent for 300,000 gold, because there are none for sale at any price. I did the math on the whole engagement while I worked. 15 enemies, over 800 merit. Somewhere north of 1 million gold in materials, and I had been on the battlefield for under an hour. I remember looking up into the fog and thinking, with total sincerity, they have been coming out here in squads of 12 and splitting this. The next clearing had 9 of them in it, and 4 people on their knees. Demon City faction, all 9, standing in a loose ring around what was left of a Divine City squad. An elf priest with an empty wand and 1 arm hanging wrong. A catwoman with 2 swords and about 11 cuts, still up, still swearing. An ancient clan man who was on 1 knee and shaking, and a small flower fairy who had stopped moving entirely. The Demon City men were not fighting, they were shopping. That wand is worth something. The cat has a set. Take the boots, leave her the rest, I want to see her walk home. Ransom the fairy back to her house. Their families pay. I have done it twice this month. One of them kicked the ancient clan man over so he could get at a pouch on his belt, and the man went down without a sound, and the whole ring found that funny. Here is the thing. I did not care. I want to be honest about this because it is who I was that day. I was 40 minutes into the best merit rate in the world, and my first complete thought on walking into that clearing was that 9 stationary targets in a circle is the single best formation an enemy has ever offered me. I put an arrow through the one who was doing the kicking. He did not know. He went down mid-laugh, and the other 8 spun around into a fog bank with nothing in it, and the second arrow was already in the air. Who is that? Show yourself! Third arrow, the one who had shouted. The remaining 6 did the correct thing, which is that they stopped looking for me and charged the direction the arrows came from, and I let them get 11 meters before I stepped out of the fog onto a boulder in front of them. 6 became 4 before the first one reached the boulder. 4 became 1. The last one blocked. Genuinely blocked. Took an arrow on his weapon and knocked it wide, and had about a quarter second to feel good about it before the next one arrived, and that was the end of the Demon City presence in that clearing. 9 of them. Under 20 seconds. The 4 on the ground had not moved. I understood why later. In their heads, the sequence of events was that 9 level 60 elites had been erased by something they could not see, and the something was now walking toward them. I walked straight past them and started looting the bodies. That is genuinely what I did. I did not check on them. I did not say anything. I used the gathering skill on the first man, then the second, then worked down the line, and behind me I could hear 4 people trying to decide what was happening. The elf priest got up first. She came over and she was shaking, and she bowed properly, wand across her chest, and she said, "Thank you. My name is Lyra. We owe you our." I moved to the next body. She stopped. There is a very particular silence a person makes when they have started a formal sentence and the other party has walked away from it. The Catwoman tried next, and then the ancient clan man, who checked my information and then said out loud, in a completely different voice, "His level is 47. That got a reaction. That got all 4 of them looking at each other. 47? He killed 9. He killed 9 in one breath. I finished the last body, whistled Hoozie down, got on his back, and left. I did not say one word to them, not one, the whole time. I have thought about that a lot since. At the time, my honest reasoning was that talking to them cost me minutes and gained me nothing, and I had a clock running, and I did not come out here to make friends after the entire muster ground watched me get turned down by 3 squads in a row. That is the reason. It is not a good one. Lyra did not deserve it. By late afternoon, I stopped counting engagements. I found a running battle at a rock formation and joined it, and the enemy broke inside 2 minutes. I found a hunting party and hunted it. I got caught in a trap field, an actual prepared trap field, and only got out of it because Golden Bell cover is gold quality, and I had the war key to hold it for 11 seconds while the ground went off underneath me. I ate the pills. I sat down and meditated when my war key hit half, because war key is the whole engine, and a man with an empty tank out here is a man with a stick. And back in Dawn City, on a wall, people were watching a leaderboard. I found this out later, obviously, but I have heard it described enough times that I can tell it properly. Somebody noticed a new name enter the rankings. Not the top of the rankings, the bottom of them, position 900 and something, which is where you land when you cross the minimum threshold to be listed at all. Then a minute later, it had moved. Then it moved again. Who is that? Their points are climbing every time I look. It is a human named Li Ming, and Willow Sprite, sitting on the wall on patrol duty, opened the leaderboard. Her squad was around her, all 11 of them. The captain who told me the stove was hot, the ones who had laughed. And they watched a name none of them recognized go from 900th to 800th to 642nd inside 40 minutes. And one of them said, out loud, "That has to be a squad. One person cannot." And Willow Sprite said, "He does not have a squad." Nobody answered her. She told me afterward that the best part was not the apology. The apology came, eventually, and it was sincere and awkward and involved a dinner invitation. She said the best part was the 11 minutes before anybody said anything, while all of them sat on a wall and watched the number go up and slowly worked out what they had done that morning. I did not get to hear any of that until the next evening, when I came back through the gate and she was waiting at the arch. She had clearly been waiting a while. She was leaning on the same wall in the same spot, and when she saw me, she pushed off it and got about 4 words in before her squad captain arrived behind her at a jog. He was carrying his helmet in both hands, which I did not know was a thing anybody did. "Li Ming, I was wrong. I said it to your face, and I would like to unsay it to your face." I want to be honest, I had a line ready. I had been carrying it around for 2 days, polishing it, something short about how his line was going to be fine without me in it. I looked at him standing there holding his helmet, and then I looked at Willow Sprite standing beside him with her arms folded and her chin up, and I did not use it. Because the person he had actually cost something was not me. I had gone out and had the best 2 days of my life. She had stood in a muster ground and been told, in public, by her own captain, in front of 11 people she works with, that she was going to get somebody killed to feel good about herself. "You were not wrong," I said. "You were right about the numbers. Everybody was." "That is generous." "It is not." I nodded at her. "She was right about the person. You had both pieces on the table, and you only looked at one of them." He thought about that for a second, and then he laughed, unhappily, and put his helmet back on. "That is worse," he said. "That is much worse. Thank you." He went off to tell the others, and Willow Sprite stayed where she was, and the 2 of us stood in the arch for a moment, not saying anything. "I did not defend you," I said, "in the muster ground. I let it happen, and I walked off." "I know. I should have said something." "You should have." She said it immediately, with no cushioning at all, and then her tail moved for the first time since I had met her. "And then you went and made every single one of them apologize to me, without saying a word, so I am choosing to be extremely gracious about it." "That was not the plan." "I know that too," she grinned. "It is still the outcome. Take the win, human." Her time in the Divine City ran out about a week later. That is how it works. Everybody gets a pass with a number of days on it, and hers was shorter than mine, and one morning she simply was not there. She sent one message before she went, and it said, "Told them so." I have never worked out how to answer that, so I never did, and I am aware that this is the second thing on the list of things I owe her. Meanwhile, I was in the middle of a general engagement with about 3,000 people in it, and I was not thinking about leaderboards at all. 3-way collision. Us, Angel City, Demon City, all of it in a valley, the sky full of wings and the ground full of everything else. and I came into the edge of it and did the sum, and the sum was that I had never in my life seen this many legitimate targets in one place. I used Dragon Soar's The Nine Heavens, 30,000 war chi. It builds a dragon. That is not a poetic description. It condenses into an actual golden dragon about 60 meters long, and then it goes where you point it. And where I pointed it, there had been about 200 people. There were fewer afterward. The valley stopped. Not metaphorically. 3,000 people in a melee all paused for approximately 1 second, and then both enemy factions did something I did not expect, which is that they agreed with each other. Kill the human! Both sides, that one first! Angel City and Demon City, who have been killing each other in that fog for months, formed a temporary alliance in the field, in real time, because of one person. And I want to be clear that at the time, this did not feel like a compliment. It felt like 400 people running at me. So I used it again. That is the entire trick, and it is not a trick. They had all just watched me spend 30,000 war ki, and every single one of them did the same arithmetic that everyone does, which is that nobody has 2 of those. I have 100,000. The second dragon did not kill as many, because this time they saw it coming, and about 300 of them threw up a joint barrier and held it, and the 2 energies ground against each other and cancelled. But every man on that field had just watched 300 elites combine everything they had to survive one attack from one person. The Divine City side went absolutely berserk. I have never heard a noise like it. Somebody started shouting, and then the whole line was shouting, and they went forward into 2 factions that had been winning 90 seconds earlier. I put away the Silver Moon Spear, took out 2 junk spears, and spent the next hour doing the only thing I am genuinely world-class good at, which is turning cheap objects into expensive explosions. Gunburst, gunburst, you long, dark night holy eye, so the whole world slows down, and I can see where a demon keeps his heart, which is on the right, and where an angel keeps his, which is on the left, and neither of them armors that side properly, because on their home worlds, nobody knows. Both factions broke and ran at dusk. Our side chased. I did not chase. I stayed on the field and looted it, because there were 1,100 sets of equipment lying in that valley, and a running enemy is worth nothing, and a dead one is worth about 4,000 gold. Nobody competed with me for it. That surprised me. There were hundreds of our own people picking through that field, and every single time I moved toward a section, they moved out of it. And it took me a while to understand that I had become, in the space of one afternoon, the kind of person other people give way to. I got back to Dawn City after 8 at night with a bag I could not close, and the leaderboard said 5th, 740 points, day 1. 5th place on a battlefield with tens of thousands of people on it, from a standing start, alone, at level 47, and the 4 people above me had been out there for weeks. I did not go and look at it. I found the teleport array and went home, because I had a territory and it was nearly 10 at night and I had not eaten. That is the part the live stream loved, apparently. Not the dragon. The bit where the man who just took 5th place in an interdimensional war went home to check on his corn. I had Lin Jie called out to the yard, and then I emptied my bag onto the ground. I want to describe his face, but the honest answer is that his face did nothing at all. He looked at a pile of equipment about the height of a house, and then he looked at me, and then he took out his notebook. How many people did this come from? I did not count. My lord, he was writing. He did not stop writing. Approximately. Somewhere over 800. The pen stopped. That was the reaction. One pause, about a second long, and then he went back to writing and said, I will need 40 clerks and 2 days. There are cultivation manuals in there. Give them to whoever can use them. Yes, my lord. Then, without looking up, the territory needs housing. That is Lin Jie. A man is standing in front of a mountain of interdimensional war loot, and Lin Jie is worried about bunk space. He was right, though. He is always right. The population had gone past 120,000 because the heavenly prison had been quietly converting captured enemies into citizens the entire time I was away, and by then it was running at 90 loyalty and pushing a few hundred out every week, and every single one of them needed a bed and a bowl. Also, the rhinoceroses were done. The Earthcrack Dragon Rhinoceros have begun assignment to the Tiger Leopard Cavalry, Lin Jie said. A few hundred at a time, 10 more days for the rest. I did the arithmetic on that, and something in my chest went warm. A real cavalry, an actual heavy cavalry on animals that shake the ground, trained by Gao Lei for months. Ask me in a year, I said. Lin Jie almost smiled. The marshal said in 8 months. So I spent the night building, because that is what I do when I am too wound up to sleep. Tiger Leopard Cavalry Barracks to level 100, which is the ceiling, which cost me a bit over 2 million in gold and the same in lumber, and which meant 20,000 cavalry slots. Then I built the Divine Archer Barracks from a blueprint I had fused weeks earlier and never had the resources for, and it came out with a passive that adds 20% to range, which is the sort of thing that does not sound like much until you are the one who gets to shoot first. Then the housing. Wooden houses, fused up to gold, then to level 100, then 2 more of them, because a gold-quality wooden house holds 20,000 people, and I needed 6 of them and had 4. And then the laundry pool mutated. I need to explain this because it is my favorite thing that happened that week. The laundry pool is a square pond. It is the least interesting building I own. It exists because 120,000 people generate an astonishing quantity of dirty clothes, and Hejian had put it on a list. I fused it up out of habit, purple, then gold, and it stopped being a pond. What came out of the light was a river, an actual flowing river running through my territory, with stone banks on both sides and a current, and the description said it automatically clears itself of filth every day, and that clothes come out cleaner because the water moves. Laundry river. I stood there at 2 in the morning, looking at a river that had not existed 9 seconds earlier, and I laughed out loud in an empty street. Because I have a gold-quality unique talent that can turn junk into legends, and what it had just done, unprompted, was decide that my washing situation needed to be prettier. The women of my territory did not think it was funny. They thought it was the single best thing I had ever built, and they told me so, repeatedly, for weeks. One of them told me it was better than the arrow towers. I did not have a response to that. I got about 4 hours of cultivation, and then Xian Li was at my door. She does not knock. She stands there. Eventually, you notice. My lord, the south wall is under attack. Since when? Half an hour. General Gao Lei counterattacked at the south gate. You waited half an hour to tell me? You were cultivating. She said it as a statement of policy. Then, after a beat, it is frogs. It was frogs. Poison frog, level 40, green quality, and there were several thousand of them, and they hop over walls, and they exhale a mist that turns a man's lungs into a problem. I went up on the wall and used the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique to look at the field, and what I saw was one of the most satisfying things I have ever watched. Gao Lei was not fighting. He was 400 meters behind his own front line with a pair of binoculars, standing perfectly still. The front rank had shields and gas masks, which we make now, because Kwang asked one question about the poison mist 8 weeks ago and then built a workshop. Behind them, men with bamboo spears, because a poison frog jumping over a shield wall is a target suspended in midair with no way to change direction. Behind them, the new archers, and when the mist came, Guoping walked down the line and had the front rank drink antidote, because we only had a few hundred masks and antidote is cheap, and the mist rolled over 2,000 men and did absolutely nothing. They advanced at walking pace. They killed several thousand poison frogs in about 40 minutes and lost nobody. I watched for a while, and then I went back inside. That is the moment, if you want one. Not a battle. A morning where my city was attacked by a monster wave, and I stood on the wall for 6 minutes, and then went and had breakfast, because my army did not need me. 2 months earlier, I had 10 men named Zhang and a bamboo fence. The Heavenly Tao handed out the monthly ranking rewards that morning, and I was first on the level board, which got me 1,000,000 gold, 1,000 reputation, 50 free attribute points, and 5 skill points. And the entire continent immediately started shouting in the chat channel about what everybody else got. 200,000 gold for the guy at rank 19, 100,000 at rank 600, nothing at all below 1,000. Somebody typed, "So the rich get richer," and 40 people agreed with him, and I want to note that they were technically correct and that I did not care. I spent the skill points on fusion instead. Here is a thing I had been putting off for weeks. Earth Shield was blue quality. Blue. My defensive skill, the one that had kept me alive 4 separate times, was the worst thing I owned. So I fed it Tenacity Strike, which I never use, and a stack of junk skill books, and it went purple. And it mutated. Golden Bell cover. Not a shield in front of you, a shell around you, all sides, top and bottom, and I want to explain why that matters. Earth Shield stops what you are looking at. Golden Bell cover stops what you are not. I fused it again to gold and then kept going down the list and turned every combat skill I owned to gold quality, and on the last last one, the light went strange again, and the 9-wheel flying moon slash came out unique, which is the system's way of saying, "Congratulations, nobody else has this. Good luck explaining it." I went back to the battlefield the next morning with 11 gold skills and a shell I could put around myself in a quarter second. 15 angels found me inside 5 minutes. They were flying in formation, saw one man on a tiger, and turned toward me in a wide, lazy sweep, and one of them said, loudly enough for me to hear, "This human is not even running." Another one said, "Let me have this one. I want to play with it." The one who wanted to play with it came in fast, ahead of the others, transformed himself into a streak of white light, opened his mouth to say something, and I switched from spear to bow in the air and shot him through the chest before the first syllable. The arrow kept going and nearly took the man behind him. Here is the thing about fighting Angel Tribe. They are magnificent. Genuinely. They are stronger than me, they fly better than anything, their equipment is gorgeous, and their entire culture has never once had to consider the possibility that something below them in the rankings might have a plan. 2 of them were archers, and they shot at me for 4 minutes and did not touch me, because Hoodzi bats arrows out of the air with his paws now, which he learned by himself and is extremely smug about. One of them tried a flaming arrow, which was actually good, and I shot it out of the sky, which was better. The rest tried to close to melee because their ranged options had failed, and closing to melee with a man holding a gold quality spear at level 30 proficiency is a decision, and they all made it. And I want to be respectful here because they died bravely and stupidly, and they were not bad people. 15 of them. Nobody got away. The first one alone had dozens of pieces of equipment and over 500,000 gold on his body. That is when I made the decision that started the war. Because I ran the numbers on the way home, and the numbers said this. A Demon City elite carries between 20 and 100,000 gold. An Angel Tribe elite carries 500,000, sometimes millions, because Angel City is wealthy and proud, and its people go to war wearing their money. So I stopped hunting whoever I found. I started hunting angels specifically. I flew west, deliberately, into the part of the fog where Angel City's people hold ground, and I spent 2 full days doing nothing else. Squads of 8, squads of 20, 100-strong hunting party that I broke with 2 gunbursts and a dragon, and then followed for 3 kilometers. By 7 in the evening on the second day, I was 3rd on the leaderboard, and in Angel City, in a hall I have never seen, a lot of very angry people were having a meeting about a human. They called it the Demon Slayer Alliance, which is a wonderful name for a group formed to hunt one specific merchant. I heard the details much later, from a Divine City man who had a cousin on the other side, and the details are these. Angels who had escaped me came back to the City of Freedom with stories, and the stories got bigger, the way they do, and inside 2 days there was a public sign-up. I have heard this serial killer is strong. I would like to see how strong. I refuse to believe a human can do that. I, Dave, will kill him personally. Dave. There is an angel out there named Dave, and he raised his hand to hunt me, and I have never met him, and I think about him more than is healthy. 500 names in the first day. Then more. And not all of them were there for revenge, which is the part I appreciated when I found out. A good number of them signed up because they had heard I was carrying gold quality equipment and several 100 million in gold, and they wanted a piece. I did not know any of this was happening. I was at a hotel drinking tea, because I had a trading day, and trading days are not optional. Sima Chao had assembled 10 billion gold of merchandise in 4 days by mobilizing every house she could reach, and she laid it out on the table in storage bags and said, apologetically, that it was less than she wanted. Crystal cores from Tier 1 to Tier 4. Attribute crystals. Pills, in bulk, in quantities that made my shop's message board a war zone the moment they went on the shelves. Several hundred white cultivation manuals. Several dozen green ones. Not a single blue one, because there are none, anywhere, at any price. 7 days from now, I can provide 50 billion, she said. Do your best. I have 20 days left. Then Manhua arrived, and Dragon Jingwei, who hugged me and announced that he was paying for lunch and would not be argued with, and Cai Bo, and by the end of it, the day's total had crossed 30 billion gold, and I had a headache and a bag containing about 4 months of my territory's development compressed into an afternoon. I put a batch on the shop shelves when I got home, and it was gone in under 10 minutes, and the message board did this. Why are the pills out again? Restock, I am begging you. Brother, could you please announce it in the chat channel first? Your shop was empty by the time I opened it. Medicine urgently needed. Please, I have money. I want to point out that these are the same people who called me a bloodsucker 4 months earlier, and that at least 2 of them were doing both in the same week. Then I upgraded my territory to level 40, and the territory expanded, and the expansion presented me with a bill. The city wall does not grow with the city. Nobody tells you this. The territory area multiplies, and your wall stays exactly the same size, sitting in the middle of your new land like a fence around a garden in the middle of a farm. The system asked if I would like to extend the wall. I said yes. 4 million stone, gone, instantly. In one transaction, in 1 second, 4 million units of stone that I had been accumulating for 2 months, and I stood there watching my entire strategic reserve evaporate into masonry. I said several things out loud. The live stream has transcripts. And then, because I clearly had not learned anything, I went and looked at the tile shop. Kwang's tile shop lets you pave ground at 5 price points, from 1 gold per square meter up to 10,000. I had never once looked at the 10,000 tier because 10,000 gold per square meter is an insane number. I fused a dragon scale tile up to gold quality and read the description. Ground defense plus 100%, building defense plus 100%, movement speed on paved ground plus 100%, training speed plus 100%, and all attributes of everyone standing on it plus 50%, provided you have laid at least 10,000 square meters. 50% to everyone, permanently, for standing on my floor. I paved 100,000 square meters, 1 billion gold coins, in an afternoon, on flooring. And then I did the arithmetic on paving the whole territory, and the answer was 16 trillion gold coins, which is a number so far outside my means that I had to sit down on my own extremely expensive floor. I am the richest man on Lord Continent. I have a monopoly on food, water, tools, medicine, siege engines, and toilet paper, and I cannot afford to finish my driveway. The live stream had a wonderful time with that. Somebody wrote that they used to think I had more money than I could spend, and now they realized my fortune was a drop in a bucket, and honestly, correct. The Heavenly Tao gave me a lucky draw for hitting level 40 on the crystal building, and the wheel came up purple. Beast Emperor technique. A cultivation manual, purple quality, learnable only by demons, pets, and beasts. I looked at it for a second, and then I turned around and yelled at a tiger who was asleep on my floor. Huzi, get up. He raised his head with the specific expression of a creature who has been napping on heated flooring and considers this an attack on his person. I threw the manual at him. You are lucky, kid. I pulled something you can use. He looked at it. He looked at me. And then he understood, and 9 feet of ancient apex predator got up and did a full circuit of the room at speed, knocking over a chair, roaring in a way that meant absolutely nothing, before flopping down and starting to read a book he cannot physically hold. He learned it in about 4 minutes. Then he dumped every skill point he had accumulated into it, because he had thousands and had never had anything to spend them on, and the next morning his flight speed had doubled. He has never once let me forget that he cultivates now. He sits in the courtyard doing it, in public, in a spot where people walk past. Then Bai Li Hua sent me a message that said, check the chat channel, something good. Somebody was selling a gold quality building chest. I want to explain what that means. A building chest gives you a random building, no blueprint, no materials, just a building. A gold quality building chest gives you a random gold quality building. Nobody had ever had one. Nobody knew how the seller got it, and he was not saying. Public bidding had reached 800,000 and stalled because 800,000 gold for a random outcome is where most people's nerve runs out. I added him as a friend. His name was a Jin of fresh meat. He asked what I was prepared to offer. I said, name your price, I will buy it if it is reasonable, and I will not argue if it is not. He thought about it and said, 1 million. I said, okay. He was so pleased. He announced it in the chat channel. He told everyone he had sold it to the big landlord for 1 million gold, and people congratulated him, and for about 11 minutes, a Jin of fresh meat was the happiest man on Lord Continent. I opened the chest. Auction house, gold quality. And the special attribute, the one I read 3 times, was that it sells tickets, and the tickets teleport the buyer into the building. Teleport, any lord, from anywhere on the continent, into a room I own. I built it outside the wall and named it the Huasha Auction House. And the moment it registered, it appeared on the trading channel as the only auction house in the world, and the chat channel detonated. When did we get an auction house? That is the gold chest the big landlord bought this morning. Wait, teleport tickets. Does that mean we can meet? That is the line that did it. Not the auction, that line. Because every lord on that continent had spent 4 months alone. Every single one of them was the only person from our planet within 1,000 kilometers of themselves, surrounded by loyal, kind, completely foreign people who called them my lord and would die for them and had never heard of a telephone. A djinn of fresh meat messaged me privately about 90 seconds after the announcement. Is that the building from my chest? It is. And then, because I am not actually a monster, do not worry, I will invite you to the first auction. You sold me the building. He typed back, thank you in advance, I will definitely attend. I have thought about that man a lot. He made 1 million gold in one trade, which was a fortune to him, and he did nothing wrong, and he will spend the rest of his life in a world where the single most famous building was in his hands for one afternoon. I upgraded the auction house that night until I ran out of blue crystals, which was level 51, which meant one auction every 50 days, 1,500 tickets, and a session length of 500 minutes. Then I went and found a girl named Liu Xiaoyu. She came out of the talent market 3 weeks earlier, and she is the single most talkative person in my territory. She knows everyone. She calls me Lord Brother, which nobody else on the planet would survive doing, and she has never once in her life been intimidated by anything. I took her up onto the auction stage and ran the process 3 times. Do you understand it? Do not worry, Lord Brother, I will learn it properly. She blinked at me. But if I do not learn it well, you will not blame me, will you? How could I blame you? The building is low level. We will not run these often. Just watch this time. Lin Jie found me 4 more. Shen Yi, Duan Mei, Gu Xuan, Cao Ru. Clever, quick, and all 5 of them completely baffled by the concept of a modern auction, which is fine because we had time and I intended to run internal practice runs, which meant that somebody had to work the first one, which meant me. I have never conducted an auction in my life. I have watched them on television. That is the entire extent of my qualifications. I picked out a casual outfit because suits make me look like a man being sentenced, put Wu Tian and Zhou Hai on either side of the stage with 100 trap camp soldiers behind them, and told them both very clearly that under normal circumstances they were to do nothing at all. Wu Tian said, "Do not worry, my lord. Anyone who causes trouble, I smash them with 1 hammer. Nobody is going to cause trouble. Then I will stand here." He was already standing there. He had been standing there for 2 hours. I laid on fruit, drinks, restrooms, which I mentioned because the session runs 8 hours. A few dozen girls trained as servers that afternoon with one instruction, which is that if any lord puts a hand on you, hit him first, and I will handle the rest. It is my building. I make the rules there. And then I sold 1,500 tickets at 1,000 gold. Each and every single one of them went in under 4 minutes. At 6 in the evening, the countdown hit 1, and 1,500 people appeared in my building at the same time. They came in as beams of light landing in seats, 1 per ticket, and for about 4 seconds it was completely silent while every single one of them worked out where they were. And then they saw each other. I have been in some loud rooms. That was not loud in a normal way. It started as a rising noise with no words in it, and then it broke into 1,500 people all talking at once, standing up, turning around in their seats, grabbing the shoulder of the stranger next to them. A man 2 rows back said, out loud, to nobody, "You are real." Some of them had dressed up. That is the detail that gets me. Some of them had come in full armor because they did not trust me, which is fair. But some of them had put on a suit. Lin Shu came in an evening gown that she told me she had assumed she would never wear again in her life. Wu Chen told me, without being asked, that he had showered, changed, and put on cologne he had been saving for 4 months. For an auction, held by a man they had spent a season calling a landlord. My friend group had the front row. They came over the barrier at me before I had gotten off the stage. "Li Ming! Big brother, we finally see you!" And then, from about 4 people simultaneously, "You are so young." That is apparently the single most shocking thing about me. Every one of them had built a picture of the big landlord in their head, and the picture was a middle-aged man with a hard face and a calculator, and instead they got somebody in his 20s in a casual jacket. Somebody took a photograph, and it was in the chat channel inside a minute, and then everybody was taking photographs. Murong Jing walked straight through the middle of it and hugged me and announced to a room of 1,500 people, "Husband, your wife has missed you terribly." There is no correct response to that. I have looked. Xiao Ning hugged me next and said it had been so long and she had missed me, and she is genuinely elegant, so it landed differently, and half the room noticed. Lin Shu got about 40 photographs. Wu Chen shook my hand with both of his. Zhao Gang told me my prices were criminal and then asked if I could put him down for pills. And Bai Li Hua came last, and she did not hug me. She put out her hand and shook mine once and said, "We meet again. We meet again. There will be more of these. I have already started upgrading the building." She held on to my hand for 1 extra second, which for Bai Li Hua is a speech, and then she went and sat down. I let them talk for half an hour before I started. I could not have stopped them anyway. Strangers were exchanging territory coordinates and complaining about crop yields, and one man from the far south was crying quietly in the 4th row, and nobody was making a thing of it. Then I got on the stage and did the worst professional performance of my life for 8 hours, and it went perfectly. First lot was a purple quality longsword called the Dingguang sword, 150 attribute points on it. I said the words, I pressed the button, and it went to 2.7 million gold coins. I was so surprised I nearly lost my place on the card. 2.7 million for one purple weapon. Lot 2 was a blue quality gauntlet blueprint, starting at 100,000. It went for 700,000. That is when I understood what an auction is. It is not a shop. In a shop, a man decides what a thing is worth to him. In an auction, a man decides what a thing is worth to him, plus what it would feel like to watch somebody else have it. Every 10 or 12 lots I put in one of mine to keep the temperature up. 100 blue quality essence replenishing pills, which increase cultivation speed by 50%, which nobody has ever seen because my shop only sells the green ones. That went for 3.5 million, and Zhao Gang typed a complaint about me into the group chat from inside my own building, from a seat I gave him for free. Somewhere around hour 3, people started leaving. Not because they were bored, because they were out of money. So I put their tickets back on sale. The chat channel had been full of people who missed out, and the moment a seat came free, somebody bought it and materialized into a room that was already halfway through an auction, looked around at 1,400 strangers, and immediately started talking to the person next to him. I sold that room out 2.5 times over. Same 1,500 chairs. Hour 8. Last 3 lots. A purple quality barracks blueprint, which nobody on the continent had ever seen, went to 7.3 million after a bidding war that had 4 separate lords visibly doing sums on their fingers. Then a blue quality spatial storage bag, 1,000 cubic meters. I did not say very much about that one. I did not have to. I said, still short of storage, and then I let the room look at it. It went for 10.35 million gold coins. I have to be honest, I lost my composure a little on that one. 10 million for a bag, and I had underpriced spatial storage for 4 months because I had one and had stopped noticing. Last lot was a full purple quality set, 5 pieces, with set bonuses, and it was not mine. It had been consigned by a lord from another country, and I hope he had a wonderful evening. When the last hammer went down, the room applauded, and then nobody left. They stood around in a building at 2 in the morning talking to each other, and I stood at the back of my own auction house and watched 1,500 kings who had not seen a person from home in 4 months refuse to go back to their empty palaces. I did not charge them for the extra hour. The chat channel the next day was unrecognizable. People who had spent months calling me a bloodsucker were now writing detailed reviews of the fruit. 5 stars, excellent service. 1,000 gold ticket, extremely reasonable, would attend again. Somebody wrote, I think we were unfair to the Lord of Huaxia City. Somebody else wrote, do not be stupid, he made 40 million tonight. Both true, both fine. I trained the 5 girls properly the next morning, taught them how to reject a bad lot, opened the listing channel with actual standards on it, and then I went back to the war. Because the war was still running, and I had 19 days left, and 11 million merit points is a long way from 100 million. My rank had fallen to 23rd while I was selling floor tiles. I found that funnier than I should have. Squad captains came up to me at the gate, 4 of them in a line, politely. You must be Li Ming. Would you consider joining our team? No need, I manage. That is a shame. We will not trouble you. And they went away, and every single person in that muster ground watched it happen. And I did not enjoy it as much as I thought I would. There is a version of me that would have enjoyed it enormously. That version was still standing in a fog bank 2 days earlier listening to strangers laugh. I flew west again, 2 hours in, I dropped an earth-shattering divine slash into the middle of an engagement and killed more than 40 people in one blow, which was a new record and which is not something I am going to pretend I felt bad about. And then I found the flight. 52 angels, in formation, heading east toward the front. Relaxed, confident, perfectly reasonable to be confident when you are 52 elites moving as a unit. They saw one man on one tiger coming at them head on. An enemy is flying toward us. It is a human. Does he think he is our match? I can kill his mount with one arrow. Then we watch him fall. Wonderful idea. I am looking forward to it. 2 kilometers, 1 kilometer, 900 meters. I did not want a fight. A fight means survivors, and survivors mean scrolls, and scrolls mean people escape with their money. I wanted all 52. At about 800 meters, I opened the war chi. The dragon builds in front of you, and it takes about a second and a half, and there is nothing subtle about it. 52 angels watched 60 meters of golden dragon assemble itself in the sky in front of them, and the formation came apart on the spot. Defend! Everyone, defend! He has a gold skill. That is a gold skill. A white tiger. A man on a white tiger. Is that the serial killer? The one who killed all those angels? He was supposed to be dead. Never mind. Defend! They put up a joint barrier. It was good. It was genuinely very good, and if all 52 of them had held it, it would have worked. 6 of them used escape scrolls. That is all it takes. 6 holes in a wall of 52, and the barrier folded like a paper bag, and one of the ones who stayed screamed at the ones who ran, "You idiots, we could have held it." They could have held it. That is the part I want on the record. They lost because 6 of them did the arithmetic on their own survival before the arithmetic on the groups, and the other 46 paid for it. I collected 46 sets of equipment out of the sky over the next 20 minutes. One of them was carrying more than 2 million gold on his person. I was still picking through it when Hu Zi made a noise. Not a roar, a short, low sound he makes maybe 3 times a year, which means, "Look up now." I looked up. There was a black mass coming out of the fog to the north, and it was not a squad, and it was not a hunting party. It was a wall of wings, hundreds of meters across, and it was coming straight at me with purpose. I stood in a field of corpses I had not finished going through and counted, roughly, and got somewhere between 500 and 600. "Huh," I said. "That is a lot of people to be annoyed at one guy." Hu Zi was already crouching. "Not away," I told him. "That way, toward the rocks. I want the trees." The boulder forest is about 9 square kilometers of shattered rock, dead trees, gullies, and old craters, and it is the single most fought over ground on that battlefield, because it is the only place where a smaller force can beat a bigger one. Hu Zi put us down inside it, and I disappeared. Behind me, 600 angels arrived at the tree line and stopped, and a man got out in front of them and started giving orders. And this is where I finally have to introduce you to Marcus Holt. 3rd on the Angel City leaderboard, not a fool. I want to be very clear about that because of what happens to him, and because it would be easy to tell this story as if he were an idiot. He was not an idiot. He was the 3rd strongest person in an entire faction, and he was a genuinely capable field commander, and the reason he loses is not that he is stupid. He split 600 people into teams of 10 and put a strong leader in each one, and he gave one order. If you find him, do not fight him. Throw scrolls and withdraw. Wait for the others. That boy is strong. That is the correct order. That is exactly the right call. If everybody had followed it perfectly, I would have had a very bad afternoon. They mostly followed it. That was the problem. I spent 2 hours killing them in 1s and 2s, and it was infuriating. I would drop 9 crescents into a squad from a rock, take 7 or 8 of them, and the survivors would throw a scroll at the spot where I had been and run before the smoke cleared. Every single time. No fight, no exchange, just a wall of fire and a departing angel. At one point, I chased 3 of them for 400 meters, and one turned around and dropped a thunderclap scroll on me, an actual single-target lightning scroll, and I dodged it by about 1.5 meters, and it left a hole in the ground I could have parked in. I said something rude. The live stream has it. These angels are unbelievable. They have infinite scrolls and no shame. And then I stopped, standing in a gully with a scroll crater smoking behind me, and I had the thought that made the rest of my month. I have scrolls too. I have a lot of scrolls. I have hundreds of them, because I buy every scroll that touches the market on 2 worlds, and more importantly, I confuse them, which means the white garbage scrolls that everybody throws away become blue, and blue becomes purple, and purple becomes gold, and they will not fight me. They have been ordered not to fight me. They have been ordered to concentrate. They want to surround me, so I went and got surrounded on purpose. Here is what I did, and it took about 40 minutes, and I have never enjoyed anything more. I picked an area of open ground in the middle of the boulder forest. I took a shovel out of my bag, because I own a shovel, because I own everything. And I buried scrolls, blue quality and up, one every 100 meters or so, in a rough ring maybe 400 meters across, and next to every single one, I buried a timer prop. A little mechanical thing from the black market shop that I had bought for something else entirely and never used, that sets a small fire on a delay when triggered. Because a scroll does not need a person to activate it. A scroll needs heat. Then I went and let them see me. I appeared in front of a squad, killed 2, and ran. Appeared again on the other side, killed 1, ran again. I made absolutely certain that every group in that forest personally saw me and personally reported my position, and I moved in a spiral that got tighter and tighter, and every time I moved toward the middle. In the group chat that I did not know about, Marcus Holt was collecting position reports and assembling them into a picture, and the picture was of a man being slowly cornered. We have him. He is running out of ground. Give me your coordinates. First squad regroup east. Second squad move to... He did it perfectly. He genuinely did. Over 1,000 angels by then, because more had arrived, closing a circle 400 meters across on a target who had nowhere to go. I let them close it. They came out of the rocks on every side at once, and above me as well, hundreds of wings blotting the sky, and I stood in the middle of open ground with a spear and a tiger, and let them do it. Boy, where do you plan to run now? You cannot leave, not now. Finally, and Marcus Holt came forward through his own line, immaculate, wings folded, absolutely in command of the situation, and he looked at me with the particular satisfaction of a man whose plan has worked. You are the human. Are you satisfied with the encirclement I have built? I looked around at it. It was a good encirclement. If it were one-on-one, I said, which one of you could beat me? He laughed. And here's the thing, his answer was correct. Who would fight you one-on-one? No matter how strong you are, who remembers you after you die? In this world, it is not about who is strongest. Only the strongest who are still alive at the end are kings. He gestured at 1,100 angels. The difference between us and you is that we are united. One shout, and any threat to us stops existing. That is a very good plan, I said. You understand then? I do. Unfortunately, your plan is nothing in my eyes. I put my hand in my pocket. Remember not to forget my name when you get to hell. My name is Li Ming. He said, what does that mean? There is nobody from your faction anywhere near here. I checked. He had checked. That is what kills me about him. He had genuinely checked for reinforcements, which is the correct thing to check for, and it never once occurred to him to check the ground. I crushed the trigger prop. Then I crushed a second thing in my other hand, which was a gold-quality invincibility scroll that I had fused up from a stack of junk that morning, and a shell of light closed over me and Hu Zi. Marcus Holt shouted, "Attack!" and the entire ring went off at once. I could not see it. That is the honest truth. I was inside a scroll that emits no energy in either direction, and all I had was sound. And the sound was not an explosion. It was a series of explosions running into each other and then not stopping. Fire, storm, ice, meteors, lightning. Every scroll I had buried, going off inside a ring 400 meters across that contained 1,100 people standing shoulder to shoulder because they had been ordered to concentrate. The ground moved. Inside an invincibility field, the ground moved. And in my vision, merit notifications began to scroll, and they did not stop scrolling. 52, 56, 60, 55, 58. They went for a long time. When the shield ran out and the smoke cleared, I stepped out into a landscape that did not look like the one I had been standing in. Every boulder was gone, not moved, gone, turned to dust. The dead trees had stopped existing. There were craters in the craters. Huh, I said, out loud, alone, to a flying tiger. I actually did that. Over 1,000 angels, in one press of a button. I jumped up on Hu Zi and said, "Come on, loot." Marcus Holt got out. He had a spatial scroll ready, and he used it the instant the ground moved, which is a genuinely excellent reaction, and it still did not save him from the edge of it. He came out of a spatial passage 2 kilometers away and coughed up blood and stood there in a field working out what had happened to him. He opened his group chat with shaking hands to check his numbers. He was alone in it. 1,100 names, and one of them was still logged in, and it was his. He stood there for a while, and then he said, out loud, to nobody, "Li Ming, is that it? I, Marcus Holt, will remember you." And then he flew home to tell everybody about it, and that is when this stopped being a hunt and became a war. My points went up by more than 1,000 in 1 minute, second place, overall, on a battlefield with tens of thousands of participants, and the man in first had been out there for weeks and was suddenly looking over his shoulder at a name that had not existed 3 days earlier. The Dawn City wall lost its mind. I have been told the scene, people refreshing the leaderboard, going quiet, refreshing it again. Somebody saying, that is not possible. One man cannot gain 1,000 points in a minute. Somebody else pointing at a column of smoke on the horizon that was still visible from the city. Haquan, who was first, apparently just stared at the board and said, "How is he doing that?" I did not know any of it. I was on my hands and knees in a crater going through pockets. Because that is the actual business, and I want to make sure that lands. 1,100 people had come out to kill me, and every single one of them had brought their equipment, their gold, their scrolls, and their spatial rings, and all of it was now lying on the ground in an area about 400 meters across. The gathering skill at gold quality picks up everything within 10 meters in one motion. I rode Hu Zi in a spiral for 11 minutes, 368,000 gold from one spot, then another, then equipment, stones, materials, scrolls, cores. Several 100 million gold, conservatively, from one crater. Our own people started arriving to look while I was still working, dozens of them, then hundreds, standing at the edge of it staring. I swung the spear and put a line of golden light in the dirt in front of them. This is mine. Anyone who touches it, I will not be polite. Nobody moved. Nobody even pretended to be offended. They said, "We are just looking. We are all on the same side. We would not dream of it." And they stood there, watching a level 47 human sweep an area the size of a village clean, like a man raking leaves. I heard one of them behind me. He was not talking to me. He was talking to his friend, quietly, and he sounded genuinely upset about it. Those were Angel Tribe. Their race is in the top 300. Ours is not. Humans are outside 5,000. And his friend said, "Then what is that?" Marcus Holt went home and told a lie, and the lie is the most impressive thing he ever did. He stood up in the City of Freedom and said that the people of the myriad races' divine city were monsters, and that one of them, a human named Li Ming, had set a trap and slaughtered thousands of angels. Thousands, not 1,100. And he named the dead, individually, by name, out loud, in a public hall, in front of their friends and their families and their brothers. And then he added the part that was completely invented, which is that we were assembling an army to raze the City of Freedom to the ground. I have to admire it. It is a masterpiece. Every single element of it is either true or unfalsifiable, and the emotional load is perfectly balanced between grief and pride, which are the only two things Angel Tribe run on. They think we are easy to bully. We angels will make these ants pay. Counterattack. 10,000 names in the first hours, then 20, then 30,000, because once the momentum starts, nobody wants to be the angel who stayed home. By the time they marched, it was over 50,000. 50,000 elites, in the air and on the ground, moving east in a mass so large that the entire battlefield saw it coming, and every squad from every faction ran in the opposite direction. Demon City watched them go past, and started making plans about picking over whatever was left. Divine City sent recall orders to every captain in the field, and I found out because I was standing in a gully looting a corpse, and about 40 of our own people ran past me at full speed. I dropped down in front of a squad and asked what was happening. Angel City has gathered a force to attack Dawn City. We are recalled. We are going back to set up defenses. How many? Tens of thousands. It will grow. And here is my genuine, unedited, immediate reaction, which the entire captain's squad witnessed, and which I understand made me look insane. My eyes lit up. The captain said afterward that he had never seen anybody react to the words 50,000 enemies by looking delighted, and that it had unsettled him for the rest of the day. Because I still had scrolls. I had a lot of scrolls. And I had just learned something extremely important about how they get used, which is this: an army walks on roads. I said thank you, and I did not go back to Dawn City. I went the other way. There is exactly one route from the City of Freedom to Dawn City that 50,000 people can use. I checked it. I flew the whole length of it and checked, and it was the only way, and it was flat and open and had no cover, which is precisely why it is unambushable, and precisely why nobody has ever tried. I sent Hu Zi 3 kilometers west to watch and tell me when they were coming. Then I sat down in the middle of an empty road and started fusing. Storm scrolls, thunder scrolls, space storm scrolls. I ate an apple that restores 20 times mental energy, which is a thing I make, and I burned through every white and green scroll I owned, turning them into blue and purple and 5 times gold. Then I took out the shovel. I want you to picture this properly. There is a man alone on an empty road in a war zone in the afternoon, digging holes with a shovel. He digs a hole. He puts a scroll in it. He puts a little timer prop next to the scroll. He fills in the hole. He walks 100 meters. He digs another hole. He does this for over a kilometer. The live stream, I have been told, went from confusion to hysteria in about 4 minutes. He is doing it again. He is genuinely doing it again. Is this landmine warfare? Is this Lord Continent landmine warfare? The person above is completely correct, and I want that framed. Then I looked at the sky and had a problem. Because a large fraction of Angel City has wings, and a buried scroll does not help you with a man 300 meters up. So I went through my prop cards until I found one I had never used, a concealment formation. It hides whatever is inside its radius, completely, from any angle. You can see where this is going. I got on Hudzi, fed him a stack of enhancement pills, took him up to an altitude where the ground was a map, switched on the concealment card, and sat there. A bomber. I built a bomber out of a tiger, a shopping card, and 5 gold quality scrolls. Then Hu Zi came back and made a noise, and I said, "They are here, aren't they?" And he nodded, which he does, and made a series of sounds I could not understand, but which I am confident meant that there were a great many of them. There were a great many of them. I went down to the ground first, because the trap needed a rabbit, and I took out an illusion scroll that surrounds you with a few dozen phantom figures, and then I let the vanguard see me. "Enemies ahead! A squad running for Dawn City! Charge! We will wipe them out!" They were not ready for us. Chase them down. So I ran. I ran west to east down the exact road I had spent the afternoon burying, and 50,000 angels followed me onto it. And the truly beautiful part, the part I did not plan and could not have planned, is that only the front 200 were actually chasing me. Everybody behind them was just following the person in front. 50,000 people walked single file onto a kilometer of buried gold-quality scrolls because the guy ahead of them was walking there. Halfway down, I fed Hudza a speed pill and vanished, and we went up, and the concealment card went on, and I sat in the sky above a road watching an army fill it. Marcus Holt was at the front. Of course he was. He had assembled all of this personally. 30,000 had become 50,000 under his name, and he was riding at the head of it, feeling like a man at the summit of his life. He made a speech. I could not hear it, but I have been told what he said. "Brothers, Dawn City is not far. Show these lesser races what the strong of Angel City can do." I waited until the middle of the column was over the middle of the field. Not the front, the middle. You want the maximum number of people inside the ring when it goes, and the front of a column is always the thinnest part. Then I started dropping scrolls out of the sky on the flyers, and pressed the trigger for the ground. Marcus Holt told somebody afterward that the first thing he felt was a wave of energy coming from every direction at once, and that his smile froze on his face, and that his very next thought, before fear, before anything, was, "This feels familiar." He said out loud, "Is this a hallucination? How can this happen twice?" Then he took out a spatial scroll and left, and this time he had learned, and he got out clean. Everybody else was still there. I have tried several times to describe what it looked like, and I do not think I can. It was not an explosion. An explosion has an end. This had a beginning, and then it kept having a beginning, over and over, along a kilometer of road, and then the separate energies started reaching each other. That was the part I did not plan for. Fire meeting ice meeting storm meeting lightning, and the reactions between them producing a second detonation that was larger than the first. I had a teleport scroll ready, and I used it, and I was still nearly taken out of the sky by the shockwave. Hudzi got blown backward and dropped, and I got Golden Bell cover-up around both of us, and we came out of the tumble about 600 meters lower than we started with my ears bleeding. The mushroom cloud went up higher than anything I have ever built. The shockwave killed Demon City observers who were watching from 10 kilometers away. It shook the walls of Dawn City. The general on the Dawn City rampart, who was expecting a siege in about 40 minutes, looked at the horizon, said nothing for a long moment, and then sent a scouting team. And in my vision, the merit notifications started. They did not stop for a very long time. 55, 57, 59, 54, 52. I said to a stunned tiger. That is a lovely sound. When we went back, the road was gone. Not damaged. There was no road. There were craters where the road had been, and the earth was still glowing in places, and the air over it was hot enough to see through crookedly. There were no survivors. Not some. None. I checked my points out of curiosity and stopped moving. Over 60,000. I had killed more than 60,000 people since I walked out of that gate alone 4 days earlier, and most of them had died in the last 2 minutes. And then I said, out loud, oh no, and jumped on Huzi, because there were 50,000 sets of equipment lying on the ground, and half the Divine City faction had just watched my score change. They were already coming. Somebody on the wall had seen the number, done the arithmetic, and started shouting. That is the spoils of 50,000 elites. He cannot possibly collect it all himself. I am a very loyal and sentimental person, and I am going to go and help him. The general, who had ordered a cautious scouting team 11 minutes earlier, was, according to multiple witnesses, the first man out of the gate, on a horse, at a full gallop, well ahead of everybody. So it became a race. Thousands of allies sprinting across a battlefield toward a crater field, and me in the middle of it on a flying tiger with a gold-quality gathering skill that clears 10 meters in one motion. They picked things up one at a time. I did not. They arrived to find the outer edge still full of treasure, and the entire center swept absolutely bare. And one of them said, in a voice of pure grief, he left nothing. I got about 80%. I want to be honest, I would have preferred all of it, but there were 4,000 of them and 1 of me, and a man has to know when to be gracious. I gave them the other 20% and rode out of there with the single largest fortune anyone on that battlefield has ever assembled in one afternoon. And I did not know it yet, but I had just handed the myriad races Divine City the war. Because Angel City had put 50,000 of its best people on one road, the man who came and found me in the crater field was a demon named Finn, and he was a general, and he was the first person in that entire war who treated me like an adult. You did this. I did. He looked out over about 4 square kilometers of glass and said, with scrolls. With a shovel, mostly. Finn laughed. It was a real laugh from the chest. Then he said, come with me. We are going to counterattack the City of Freedom tonight, and I want you where I can talk to you. I want to explain Finn quickly because he is important and because he is a type of person I did not expect to find out there. He is a demon. He used to be a merit hunter exactly like me, and at some point he had cashed in 100,000 merit for permanent residency in the myriad races Divine City. Permanent. One way. He can never go back to whatever world he came from. I asked him about it once later. He said there was nothing to go back to, and then he changed the subject, which is a thing people who have made that trade tend to do. He went to Officer Academy after that. Real academy, with instructors, and a large fraction of the instructors are human, which he told me with an entirely straight face while we were walking. On the road, he asked me a question that I do not think he expected an answer to. If it were your decision, what would you do next? So I told him, send a force at the City of Freedom. Not too small, not too large, fast movers. Fight for 20 minutes, then break and run, badly, and drop equipment while you do it. And run where? Straight at the Demon City observers who are sitting in the tree line 4 kilometers south, watching all of this and waiting for both of us to get tired. Finn stopped walking. They will chase, I said. They always chase a route. And they will run directly into Demon City in the dark, and by the time anybody works out what happened, both factions will have committed. He stood there in the road for a moment, and then he said, that is good. That is very good. That is not the good part. Excuse me? General, where is Demon City's army right now? I watched him get it. It took about 2 seconds, and I saw the exact moment, because the answer was, out here. All of it. Every strong person Demon City had was sitting in a tree line 4 kilometers away, waiting to profit from somebody else's war, which meant that their city, their actual city, the one with the crystal in it, was empty. You want to leave the City of Freedom entirely, Finn said slowly. and hit Dark City. I want to leave a force here making noise, and take everyone who can move fast, and be inside Dark City before anybody realizes we are not where we are supposed to be. Finn looked at me for a long moment. You people are terrifying, he said. I am very glad you are on my side. If I met you across a field, you would torment me to death. He had 2 gold-quality scrolls on him. One was a smoke scroll that runs for 2 hours. The other was a mass teleport, limited numbers, which is how we crossed most of the distance. And before we left, he told me the thing that decided the rest of my night. Whoever destroys an enemy city crystal receives 1 million merit points. He held up a finger. 1 person. If a second person strikes it, the reward divides and mostly evaporates. It has to be 1. 1 million merit. I had 11 million and needed 100. That is 1% of the entire teleportation array, sitting in a building, waiting for somebody to be alone in a room with it. Why are you telling me? He shrugged. Because nobody else could do it. And because I think you are going to be somebody. We took 3,000 fast movers and went south while the feint went in behind us. The feint worked exactly as designed and better. Our people fought the City of Freedom garrison for 22 minutes and then routed, screaming, dropping gear. And the City of Freedom garrison did what garrisons do, which is chase. Somebody popped a fog scroll over the whole plain, and in the fog, our men ran straight into the Demon City ambush position and shouted, at the top of their lungs, "Brothers of Angel City, kill them all!" The angels arriving behind them heard their own faction's battle cry from up ahead, assumed the vanguard had engaged, and charged in at full speed into a mass of Demon City elites. By the time anybody on either side had a clear look at who they were hitting, both factions were fully committed, in the dark, in fog, 4 kilometers from anywhere. Somebody on our side shouted, "The Demon City and Divine City are attacking us together," which was not true and did not need to be. Our people withdrew and watched. Meanwhile, Dark City. The gates were open. That is the detail I keep coming back to. Not lightly guarded. Open. The perimeter sentries were shot before they finished turning around, and the men on the wall were asleep against it. And Finn and I walked 3,000 soldiers into an enemy capital through a gate nobody had bothered to close, because every single person in Dark City knew for a fact that the Divine City was busy fighting Angel City 40 kilometers north. It was going too well. Everyone felt it. I could hear it in how quiet 3,000 people were being. "Split into 3, Finn said. "All of you, the General's Mansion, go!" We got about 4 streets in before somebody finally raised an alarm, and then the whole city woke up at once, and it turned into a proper street fight, and Finn was very good at those. I left. I want to be clear that I did not sneak off in shame. I told Finn I was going, and he said good, and he meant it. I found a corner, put a concealment scroll on myself and Hu Zi, and flew straight to the General's Mansion over the top of the fighting. The General's Mansion was heavily guarded on the ground, and completely unguarded from above because nobody flies into a building. And then I took out the automatic treasure compass. I need to tell you about this thing because it is the least glamorous item I own, and it made me more money than the war did. It is a compass. You feed it a crystal core, and you tell it what quality of treasure you are looking for, and it points. I set it to blue quality and above, and it swung immediately. 6 soldiers on a door. I took 3 with arrows, 2 with thrown daggers, and the last one with a punch and a very quick decision, and I put the bodies in a storage bag, because a storage bag cannot hold the living but has no objection to the dead, and I wiped the blood off the stones with my own sleeve. Then I picked the lock with a gold-quality unique master key that I looted off somebody 3 days earlier and have never once had to think about since. It was the treasury. Chests of gold coins, gems, crystals, agates, antique paintings and calligraphy that were worth more than the gold, and which I recognized as valuable only because my treasure room building back home gives attribute points for exactly that kind of thing. I took all of it, every chest, in about 90 seconds, and then the compass was still pointing. I turned around, and it was aimed at a blank wall, so I opened the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique and looked through the wall, because that is a thing I can do now. And behind it, there were 3 shelves. A hidden vault behind the vault. I found the floor mechanism, stepped on it, and the wall opened. Shelf 1, jewelry. Rings, bracelets, necklaces, hairpins, 20-odd pieces, every one of them purple quality or better. Shelf 2, 6 weapons. 2 swords, 3 daggers, 1 blade. Shelf 3. Boxes. The first box had 15 purple quality prop cards in it. The second box had cultivation manuals, more than a dozen, and one of them was purple. I want to explain what a purple cultivation manual is worth. Sima Qiao once told me, in passing, that they sell in the main city of the Myriad Race's Divine City for around 1 billion gold coins each. 1 billion. For a book. And I was holding one and a dozen of its lesser cousins in the private vault of a general who had absolutely no business owning them, which told me exactly where the war supplies of Demon City had been going. I took everything and left, and the compass finally went quiet, and I went looking for the crystal. I searched that mansion for an hour. His office, his bedroom, behind the throne, under the throne, the shrine, the armory, nothing. And then I came around a corner into a courtyard and stopped, because in front of me was a heavily guarded stone building with barred windows, the prison. I stood there, and I actually said it out loud. You put the city crystal in the prison, which is, and I have to give him this, genuinely brilliant. It is the last place anybody looks. There is no reason for a crystal to be in a cell block, and the guards on it look like normal prison guards, which is the perfect cover, right up until somebody notices that a prison with no prisoners has 40 men on it. There was no clever way in. I checked. So I picked up the Silver Moon Spear and went through the front. The good news about a cell block is that it is a corridor. Nobody can flank you in a corridor. It is just you and whoever is directly in front of you, forever. And the U-long body technique means whoever is directly in front of me is not in front of me for very long. I killed 100, then 200, then 300. And then the corridor opened out, and there were 10 of them standing in front of a cell, and the cell was glowing. They fanned out properly, weapons up, and they were not soldiers, I could tell immediately. They were contractors, elites hired specifically to sit on the most valuable object in the city. Human, it is astonishing that you got this far. You have killed a great many of us. I looked at them, and mostly to fill the silence while I got my breath back, I said, "You should stop. You have already lost this battle. If you leave now, you keep your lives." They looked at each other. Then all 10 of them sheathed their weapons, turned into streaks of light, and left. I stood there in an empty corridor with my spear halfway up. I had been making conversation. I had a whole plan for the next 11 seconds, and it involved Vajra power, and it was not going to be pleasant for anybody, and instead the entire elite guard detachment took my throwaway line as a formal offer and went home. They were merit hunters, same as me. They were not from Demon City, they were contractors who had signed up for a job, and they had just done the arithmetic on dying for an employer's real estate. The actual Demon City soldiers, the ones who were born there, did not leave. They came down that corridor at me, knowing exactly how it was going to go, and I want the record to show that they were not stupid and they were not brave in a foolish way. They had families in that city. When the crystal breaks, the city falls. I broke the lock and went in. And there it was. A crystal about the height of a man, white quality, level 10, sitting in a cell, worth 1 million merit points to whoever hit it alone. I hit it with everything. It took a shield, 99.99% durability remaining. Of course it did. So I opened Vajra power for the first time since the day I earned it. Strength times 10, everything else times 5. 6,000 points of strength, and war ki draining out of me at 1,000 a second, and I put slaughter into that crystal and took 1% off it in a single swing. Then, dragon soars the 9 heavens, and the shield trembled and the durability fell to 45. Then, gunburst, twice. 9-wheel flying moon slash, earth-shattering divine slash. Every gold skill I own, into one object, in a cell block, alone, drinking war chi pills between swings. And on the last one, the shield came apart like a windscreen, and the crystal went with it. Battlefield announcement. The Dark City faction's city crystal has been destroyed. All surviving personnel are being teleported away. Every Demon City soldier in the world vanished mid-swing. Finn's men, 3 streets away, were fighting for their lives 1 second and standing in an empty street the next. Somebody shouted, "Who broke the crystal?" Nobody knew. I was 200 meters underground with an empty war chi bar, a notification in my vision reading 1 million merit points, and my hands on my knees. The Divine City men swept Dark City for loot afterward and found nothing at all, and I have listened to the recordings of that with enormous pleasure. The mighty Dark City has no treasure. They are poorer than we are. The vault is empty, not looted, empty, swept. I found 4 pieces of white quality equipment. I am poorer than their soldiers. Not one of them worked out that the answer was standing 40 meters away pretending to look for treasure. Then Finn turned the whole army around and marched on the City of Freedom because Angel City had just lost 50,000 people on a road and another 15,000 in a fog bank fighting an enemy that was not there, and we had 80,000 and they had under 50. We arrived outside their walls at 4 in the morning. They had magic crystal cannons, rows of them, and they are not artillery. They are energy weapons with a range of 1,100 meters and enough output that only a blue-quality defensive skill will stop one. The first volley came in, and Finn threw a handful of stones into the air. Dispel stones. Hundreds of them, blue quality, the cheapest kind, and they went up and burst, and the whole sky lit, and every scrap of crystal cannon energy in the air simply stopped existing. Their guns are dead! Charge! 80,000 people went at that wall, and I did not go with them. I took Huzi up instead, high, out wide, and came back in over the top of the City of Freedom in the dark, and landed in an empty district 3 streets behind the wall, because the entire population of that city was standing on the rampart facing the other way. Then I took out the compass. I looted the City of Freedom while it was being stormed. That is what I did. Every serious lord in that war was throwing himself at a gate, and I was walking through empty houses with a magic compass and a master key, and in one of them I pulled a spatial ring out of a wall cavity that contained tens of millions of gold and 1,000 pieces of equipment. An hour of that, and then I got to the general's mansion, which is where I met the trap maze of Quentin Drake, and I have to take my hat off to the man because that maze nearly killed me twice. It started before the door. Spears fired out of the frame the instant I touched it, at chest height, and I only got out of the way because I had a bad feeling and stepped back for no reason I could articulate. Inside was a plain hall with almost no furniture in it. I opened the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique and looked properly, and my stomach turned over. The entire room was mechanisms. Every flagstone, every wall panel. There were dart tubes behind the plaster and pressure plates under everything, and a man walking into that room casually would have been dead in under 2 seconds. So I broke up some rocks and threw the pieces in. The room went off. Darts, arrows, blades out of the walls, everything, all at once, for about 11 seconds, and then it was quiet and full of dust, and I walked in over the exhausted mechanisms and found the hidden stair. Down. Traps the whole way, and I had to hold the eye technique open the entire descent at 100 war chi a second. At the bottom, a chamber, and in the chamber, a crystal glowing softly, with stone statues on either side. I looked at it properly and started laughing. It was fake. It was a decoy crystal, a different crystal, made to look right, sitting in the open behind an obvious formation, and I would have spent 40 minutes hitting it if I did not have an eye that sees through things. "You cunning old sprite," I said out loud, to an empty room, to a man I had not met. "You put a fake one out." Then I found the hidden door on the left with a keyhole in it and used the master key and turned it, and the door opened onto a sea of fire. An array scroll, permanently active, filling the corridor with flame. And behind that one, when I looked through it, there were 5 more. Quicksand, iceberg, storm, a gravity field. 6 array scrolls in series in one corridor. That is why there were no guards down there. There did not need to be. I summoned Huzi, crushed a magic immunity scroll, and we flew the whole corridor in one run. Fire did nothing. Quicksand only works on the ground. Storm is magic. All of it slid off us. And then Huzi fell out of the air like a dropped anvil. Gravity, which is not magic, which is a completely different power system, which my magic immunity scroll had no opinion about whatsoever. I got Huzi into the pet space before he hit, flipped, landed, and had the Silver Moon spear up before the arrows arrived. And then I spent about 4 minutes walking forward under 6 times my own weight, spinning a spear like a fan and knocking arrows out of the air. At the end of the corridor, there was another keyhole. I put the key in and turned it clockwise, which is what a person does. Nothing. So I turned it the other way, and every mechanism in the corridor behind me shut off at once. He had reversed it. The whole thing was reversed. Turning the key the normal way is what had armed the arrays in the first place. I had walked through 6 magic formations for no reason other than that a man had thought about which way a stranger's wrist would move. "You absolute lunatic," I said with total sincerity. Then I went forward, found another keyhole, turned it counterclockwise because I had learned, and armed everything. He had reversed the reversal. I want to be extremely clear that at this point I stopped respecting him and started being genuinely annoyed, and I went through the last 100 meters of that corridor with Golden Bell cover up and the body technique running, taking hidden weapons off my shell the whole way like a man walking through rain. And then the corridor opened out, and there was the real crystal, and beside it, a stone door with the actual treasury behind it. 3 times the size of Dark Cities. 3 times. From one general, of one small city, and it was not war spoils, most of it was war supplies. Payroll, rewards meant for meritorious soldiers, sitting in a private vault under a private mansion behind 6 array scrolls. That answered a question I had not asked. I emptied it in about 4 minutes, put Huzi on the crystal with instructions to leave the last 1%, and had gotten about halfway through the room when a voice behind me said, "Boy, you took everything out of there." Quentin Drake had come home. He had come back to collect his life savings and evacuate, because he had already written the City of Freedom off, and he had walked down his own corridor and found every trap exhausted and no bodies. He was standing in the doorway of an empty vault looking at me. "Are you blind?" I said. "I am the only person here. Who else would it be, your father?" He did not enjoy that. "It is quite an achievement," he said, and I could hear him steadying himself. "Alone, into my city, past my mechanisms to here. Speaking of methods, yours were the real work. 6 arrays and a reversed key. If it were anybody else, you would have had them. If I had come back half an hour later, you would have broken the crystal by yourself." "You are not late," I said. "You brought me ahead, and you look like a man carrying money." Then he threw a scroll at me, which I had been waiting for the entire conversation. I had a barrier prop out before it landed. The energy hit and the barrier held, and when it cleared, I started laughing, because the blast had taken about 9% off his own crystal. "You old schemer, you just helped me." He drew a purple quality longsword and drank a potion, and then another, and another. Berserk, bloodlust, attribute scrolls one after another, and his eyes went red, and something in the air around him got heavy. I have to be fair to him. With all of it running, he was fast. He was genuinely a match for me for about 90 seconds. But everything he had was rented. Every potion he drank had a bill attached, and I could see the timer on him the way you can see a candle getting shorter. I hit him with the Silver Moon spear and knocked his sword aside, and he went backward 11 meters. He threw a round device at me that detonated like a bomb, and I dodged it, and then I threw one of his own props back at him. "You are not the only one with toys," I said. "These were yours, by the way. I found them upstairs. I thought you would enjoy seeing them again." He turned a color I have not seen on a person before or since. And then a scroll went off behind me, and I got Golden Bell cover up and turned around, and there was Marcus Holt. I looked at him for a second and said, "Who are you?" I was not being clever. I genuinely did not recognize him. I had seen his face for about 11 seconds in a boulder forest 4 days earlier, while 1,000 people were about to explode. He said, and his voice was not entirely level, "My name is Marcus Holt. This is our 4th meeting." 4th? I thought about it. I have absolutely no memory of that. I have been told that this is the single most quoted line of my entire war, and that it is repeated in Angel City to this day, and I want to state for the record that I was not trying to be cruel. I simply did not remember him. Boy, those were traps. That was not strength. This time I, Marcus Holt, will kill you. "Sure," I said. The two of them together were work, genuinely. Barlow Berserk and Alvin Fresh, from opposite sides, and for about 2 minutes I was on the back foot in a stone room while the ceiling came down in pieces. So I opened Vajra Power. Golden light, strength times 10, everything else times 5, and I put one thrust through Quentin Drake's guard and out the other side of him. Marcus Holt did not even hesitate. The scroll was already in his hand. He had been holding it, I think, since before he arrived. 4th escape. Quentin Drake was still on his feet, looking at me, trying to work out how somebody's strength had done that. "You should feel lucky," I said. "You are the first enemy who has made me use this." And then it was over, and I picked up 52 million gold coins off his body, 52 million on his person, 200 million in items, plus a treasury 3 times the size of a rival capital's. That is a greedy general. That is what a greedy general looks like from the inside. I finished the crystal myself, with Huzi, and it came apart in a spider web, and then in pieces. Battlefield announcement. The City of Freedom crystal has been destroyed. Every angel in the world vanished off the walls. And then the rewards came, and they came in a stack, and I sat down on a broken step in an underground room and read them one at a time. 1 million merit for the 2nd crystal. 3 million bonus for being the only person in the history of that battlefield to break 2 enemy crystals alone. The title, Warrior. And the general announcement to everybody, the Myriad Race's Divine City has won this war. Every participant receives 1,000 points and 100,000 merit. My merit crossed 10 million. I had walked out of the Dawn City Gate 5 days earlier while a muster ground laughed at me, with 2,200 merit points and a plan that everyone I met agreed was suicide. I have never in my life felt less like celebrating. I felt like a man who has finished a shift. I got home at 8 in the morning, having fought for 22 hours straight, and I was not tired, which is its own kind of unsettling. My constitution is high enough now that I can skip several days of sleep and mostly just get irritable about it. I had Lin Jie called out to the yard. "My lord, you have been gone all night. The battlefield mission is over. We fought from yesterday until an hour ago." He absorbed that. Then he said, "Then I imagine there is material." I emptied everything except the gold. I want you to picture a courtyard. Now picture the courtyard with a mountain in it. Now picture dozens of mountains, arranged in rows because I had to keep moving to make space, each one the height of a 2-story building, made of equipment and materials and crates and weapons and books and gems. 2 enemy capitals, 60,000 elites, 1 private vault, 3 times. Lin Jie looked at it for a long moment and said nothing at all. Then he opened his notebook and said, "How many clerks?" "Whatever you need." 200, he said. 2 days, possibly 3. Liu Kang, Han Tao, and a few of the others came past on their way to the training ground and stopped dead. Jiang Wu got about 4 steps into the pile before he found what he was looking for and turned around holding a purple breastplate with both hands like a child holding a cake. "My lord, may we choose?" "It will be distributed properly, not grabbed. You will all get sets, and whatever is missing I will fuse for you." "Thank you, my lord," and he put the breastplate back. Slowly, and then looked at where he had put it, twice, on the way out. Then I went and got my level up, because I had been 47 for weeks, and the entire Divine City had said the number at me like a diagnosis. There is a canyon a day north with a colony of giant dragon ants in it, level 50, in the tens of thousands, and nobody touches them because they are armored and they swarm, and killing one at a time is a losing proposition. I used a 10 times experience scroll and then I used fire. Levels 48, 49, 50 in about 90 minutes, and the world announcement went out that the Lord of Huaxia City was the first person alive to reach level 50, and the reward was 100 attribute points, 10 skill points, 1,000 reputation, and a building draw. And level 50 unlocks level suppression, which is a passive 20% to everything against anyone below 50, which explains a great deal about why the Divine City clerk looked at me the way he did. The chat channel had opinions. That leveling speed is not normal. He is using scrolls. He is buying levels. He is buying levels because he can afford to. Some of us have to work. Both true, both fine. Then something happened that I did not expect and that I think about more than any of the war. A message came in from Jo Min. She is in the friend group and she almost never speaks. Quiet, gentle, has an island territory, has never once asked me for anything, and in 4 months I do not think she had started a conversation. Her message said, "Are you there?" Then, "I think you might need this. It is useless to me. Space stone, gold quality, 3 units. I stared at it. Elian Vance, an equipment master of the Void Clan, in a city 1 whole tier above my world, had been on a waiting list for space stone for 11 years. There is no substitute and there is no synthesis. It is the bottleneck on every spatial item in existence, and a quiet girl on an island had 3 of them and was offering them for free. You know this material is precious. I know, but I have no blacksmith. It is completely useless to me. I thought you would find it useful. How much is there? I fell into an underground passage and found it by accident. There should be a small amount left. I still have a few. A vein. She had a space stone vein under her island, and she was going to give me the surface scrapings and go back to her turnips. I did not buy them. I sent her a blue-quality barracks blueprint, several 100,000 units of lumber, and 5 million gold coins, and I told her to build an army and mine it properly. She wrote back, "This is too much. I still have some." And I said, "The space stone is very valuable. This is an investment. You need the strength to develop it, and you need the strength to hold your own territory. Build first." She thought about it for a while, and then she agreed. And then she traded me everything she had anyway, which was 15 units. I want to be honest about my motives, because I am not going to pretend to be better than I am. That was an investment. I calculated it. A funded Jo Min mines more space stone than an unfunded Jo Min, and I am the only buyer she has. But I also sat there for a minute after she sent that first message and thought about how a person who has nothing and is offered nothing in return, still opens with, "Here, you should have this." I sent her a crate of purple quality pickaxes the following week and refused to discuss it. The 15 units went straight to Elian Vance, who nearly came through the message channel at me. "Where did you get these? No, do not tell me. If you have more in future, sell to me first. I will deduct 300,000 gold per unit against our trades." 300,000 a unit, when the market rate is 250. He was overpaying me to lock in supply, and both of us knew it, and both of us shook on it happily. Meanwhile, my building draw came up blue, which was a disappointment for about 4 seconds until I read it. Elemental Tower. A defense tower. An actual defense tower that fires on its own, which is the one thing Lord Continent does not have, and which every lord on the continent has wanted since the first monster wave. I fused it to gold, and it mutated into a storm tower, and then I discovered it now requires wind element crystals specifically, which I have almost none of, which is the system's way of saying, "Congratulations, here is a new problem." I got it to level 8 and put it on the south wall and sent for Kwong. "Can you take this apart and make more?" He walked around it 3 times, hummed, and said, "Give me a month." I also built a paper mill, which I bought the blueprint for from Chen Guang in exchange for pills, and which everyone in the friend group thought was hilarious. Toilet paper. That is what it makes. Among other things, but mostly, functionally, toilet paper. There are lords on that contingent who have been using bamboo strips for 4 months. Some of them are running actual cities with actual populations, and their sanitation solution is a stick. I sold hundreds of millions of rolls on the first day, sold out, completely. The single largest one-day volume of any product I have ever listed, in a world with dragons in it, was toilet paper. Then Lin Jie came to find me with something on his face that I had not seen before. "My lord, there is something you should know." "Go on." "White quality crops. They used to mature in 24 hours. He checked his notes, which he did not need to do. They now take 26. I did not understand for a second, and then I did. "It is going back to normal," I said. "That is my belief, slowly, and it will continue. The world is closing." This place gave us a nursery with fast crops and easy chests and treasure lying in the grass. And now, quietly, without an announcement, it is turning all of that off. The chests outside my walls dried up weeks ago, and I assumed it was because we had cleared them. It was not. I have 150,000 people. They eat every day. Goldland is not fully upgraded, I said. I will finish it tonight, and we start storing. "I have already begun," Lin Jie said. Of course he had. Then I went back to Dawn City to collect my war rewards, and the streets parted for me, which was new. That is Li Ming, the human who was first on the board. He killed 60,000 by himself. A monster came out of the human race. Finn met me personally, in a very good mood, wearing new decorations. "Li Ming, your contribution was significant. Breaking the crystals of 2 opposing factions alone is something that has happened perhaps 4 times in the entire history of this war." He put an item in my hand. "I promised you a bonus. That is 500,000 merit. It is the largest I could get approved." 500,000 merit for a favor. I thanked him properly. Finn is the only person in that city who ever bet on me before I had proved anything, and I have not forgotten it. Then a Soul Clan man took me to the redemption counter and put a screen in front of me. 62,698 points. First place. I have processed a great many of these, and I want you to know that this number, on the lowest tier battlefield, is terrifying. I could have taken equipment. I could have taken skills, scrolls, gold, talents, actual talents, purchasable, which is a thing I did not know was possible. And then I saw one item and stopped reading everything else. Talent card, gold quality, 50,000 points. After use, it enhances one of your innate abilities. I read that 4 times. Because my talent is fusion. Gold quality unique, the only one in existence. And this world has taught me exactly one lesson over and over, which is that anything with a quality rating can be pushed up a step if you feed it enough, including, apparently, me. I want that. The Soul Clan man did not ask why. He is a professional. He simply looked at me for a moment with a great deal of curiosity he was too polite to voice, and processed it, and then said I was 2 points short of one more cultivation manual, and gave me the 2 points out of his own discretionary allowance. I took 127 white quality cultivation manuals with the rest. He clearly thought I had lost my mind. He does not know what I do to white quality things. And then I went home and spent an entire day committing what I can only describe as a crime against the concept of scarcity. Here is the thing about a talent card. It is an item, and I do a thing to items. I had come back from that war with tens of thousands of prop cards, not hundreds, tens of thousands, scraped off 60,000 bodies, mostly white and green quality garbage that nobody bothers to pick up individually, and that I had swept off the ground 10 meters at a time. I sat down at the space storehouse counter, ate an apple that restores 10 times mental energy, and started feeding cards into a card. The first fusion took the talent card from gold 1 star to gold 2 stars, then 3, then 4. By 6 stars, my mental energy was gone and the apple was not keeping up, so I stocked and fused a better apple, 60 times recovery. Then I ate it and kept going. 7 stars, 8, 9, 9-star gold, and it would not stop there, because the description had not changed to say it was finished, which meant there was another step, and the other step required a second 9-star card to fuse into it. 4,000 white quality cards make one 9-star gold card. I did not have 4,000 white cards left. I had used them. So I bought every prop card on the trading market. All of them. Every single one on Lord Continent at any price from anyone in one enormous shopping spree that made about 200 lords very happy and made the chat channel briefly convinced I had gone mad. And then I fused the second 9-star card. By that point, I was taking mental energy pills between fusions, which are expensive and which I was consuming like sweets, and my hands were shaking, and I had been at it for most of a day. I let my mental energy come all the way back before the last one. I sat there for 2 hours doing nothing, which is the hardest thing I did that week. Then I put the 2 9-star cards together. The light that came off that was not gold. That is the part I want to get right. Every fusion I have ever done glows gold at the top end. This one went somewhere else. It went up in a column that punched through my own ceiling and kept going, and the color of it was not a color. I have no word. It was every color arriving in sequence too fast to separate, and it did not look like light. It looked like something being permitted. Mythical quality talent card. And then the sky reacted. Not the shop, not the system, the heavenly Tao. You have accomplished something earth-shattering. You have shocked the heavens. Reward, 100,000 reputation, 1,000 free attribute points, and 100 times drop rate for every resident of your territory for 3 days. And then, to the entire world, the Lord of Huaxia City has shocked the heavenly Tao. From this moment, all drop rates on Lord Continent are increased tenfold for 3 days. I sat on the floor of my own storehouse and did not move. 1,000 free attribute points. A Lord gets 1,000 attribute points by reaching level 100. I had just been handed a full lifetime of them for playing with cards. And every single person on that continent, all of them, every lord and every soldier in every territory in the world, got a 10 times drop rate because of something I did in a room by myself. The chat channel did not survive it. The Heavenly Tao gives its own son 2,000 attribute points in 1 day. Unbelievable. I have finally understood what a chosen one is. It is this guy. What did he do? What could a person possibly do? Li Ming, did you marry the Heavenly Tao's daughter? I seriously suspect this man is the illegitimate child of heaven. We cannot complain. We can only accept it and go on. Also, thank you for the 10 times drop rate, you monster. I typed back, and I want to be clear that I regret nothing. My father is indeed the Heavenly Tao. He sent me down to experience the mortal world and its 7 emotions and 6 desires. Nobody believed me. Wen Chao worked out the real answer in about 4 messages, which is that I had made something mythical, and I confirmed it, because there was no point denying it, and because I wanted somebody to know. Then I used the card. I want to describe what happened next carefully, because I do not fully understand it, and I have not told many people. The light came up around me, and I left the floor. My body stayed in that courtyard, apparently, floating, which alarmed the Medusa guards enormously. I was not there. I was standing in a void with no sky and no ground, except that the ground was solid under my feet, and the whole place was that non-color, the one from the fusion, going in every direction forever. I called out. Nothing answered. There was no echo, which is a genuinely upsetting absence. So I walked. I do not know why I walked. Nobody told me to. There was no path and no direction, and I picked one and went, and I have no idea how long I walked for. It felt like a while. It also felt, at moments, like it had been years, and once, very clearly, like it had been a century. And none of those impressions contradicted each other, which is not how time is supposed to work. And then there was a door. It was enormous. Not tall, enormous. It went up beyond where I could resolve it, and out to both sides past the limit of my sight, and it was made of something like metal, with no handle, no hinge, no pattern, no seam. And I opened my mouth and heard myself say, "This is the gate of the gods." I had never heard that phrase in my life, not from the system, not from Sima Qiao, not from anybody in the myriad races' divine city. It came out of me the way your own name comes out of you. I stood in front of it, and I have never felt smaller. Not afraid, small. The way an ant is small, which is not an insult to the ant, it is just a fact about scale. I reached out and pushed. My hand went through it, no resistance at all. It went through the door like the door was a photograph of a door, and I got about as far as the wrist, and then I woke up. I was standing in my own courtyard, with the light draining out of my skin into the ground, and about 400 Medusa guards were staring at me, and I said, out loud, in front of all of them, "Goose." That is what came out. 4 months of building an empire and a personal audience with a metaphysical door, and my contribution was one confused syllable. Then the memories arrived. Not memories of the door, memories about my talent, an inheritance packed in all at once, several minutes of standing perfectly still while something poured a manual into my head, and when it finished, I knew things about fusion that nobody had told me. Mythical unique. That is what it says now, and what it means is this. I used to fuse one thing at a time, 2 items in, 1 item out, and then again, 10 times before I fainted. Now I fuse in bulk. A bag of seeds goes in, and a bag of gold quality seeds comes out. Not one, all of them. And I can drive a thing up multiple quality tiers in one motion if I have the material and the mental energy to pay for it. The only limit left is fuel. And the sky announced that too, because the heavenly Tao apparently believes in humiliating people publicly on my behalf. The Lord of Huasha City has obtained a mythical talent. Reward, 1,000 free attribute points, 100 skill points, 100,000 reputation. 2,000 attribute points in 1 day. Lin Shu typed, "Li Ming, can you ask your father to look after the rest of us too?" I put every one of the second 1,000 into spirit, which is mental energy, which is fuel, and my spirit crossed 2,000 points, and I could feel it, physically, like a room getting bigger. And then the 100 times drop rate started, and I got 3 days of the most ridiculous farming in the history of Lord Continent. Chests came back, actual white chests, spawning outside my walls in the grass, the way they had on the first day, which had not happened in months. Lin Jie pulled every miner, farmer, and blacksmith off their normal work and sent them out to kill things, because a resource you can only get for 72 hours beats a resource you can get every day. I went out with Xian Li and 100 Medusa guards and a single-use 10 times experience card, and I burned through 5 levels in an hour. At which point, Hu Zi found the cave. He made his noise. I went and looked. It was a hole in a rock face big enough to drive a cart into, and it smelled like animals. Inside were shed skins the size of a person. "Something in here could swallow both of us," I said, and Hu Zi made a sound I have decided not to translate. Mighty black serpents, level 57, in the hundreds. I used an ice scroll and killed most of a generation of them in one go, and then the loot on the floor got covered by the next wave coming out of the dark, so I used a wind blade scroll, and then another. I leveled up inside that cave. Off snakes. That is how many there were. And when it went quiet, I walked deeper and found stone in the walls that made me stop. Dragon Yang black stone. Purple quality ore. There is no purple quality ore on Lord Continent. There is no purple quality anything, naturally occurring, that anyone has ever reported. And this was not a seam, it was a vein, running through the whole cave system, enough to armor an army. And past that, down a passage where the air got hot, an underground world with a lava lake in it, and flowers growing on the rock that were purple quality spirit flowers, and a mountain that was not a mountain, but a single mass of blue flame crystal. And 8 enormous red serpents, level 60, purple quality, guarding it. And under the lava, when I opened the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique and looked, something much, much larger. Crown Blaze Serpent Emperor, level 65, gold quality boss. I looked at it for a while. Then I turned around and went home, because I had learned exactly one thing from the Vajra Monkey King, and the thing was that arrogance costs 400 men. We planned that boss for a full evening around a table, which is a sentence I could not have written 4 months earlier. Everyone came. Gao Lei, Liu Kang, Guo Ping, Jiang Wu, Yang Shu, Zhou Hai, Han Tao, Zhou Lei, Xu Dong, Wei Jun, Ma Li, Shen Li, and Lin Jie at the end of the table, not saying much. I described the lava, the size, the skills. Flame clone, berserk. And when I said the words gold quality boss, level 65, the room changed. Because every person at that table had been at the Vajra Monkey King. They remembered 4 hours. They remembered 400 graves. This one is 12 levels higher, Gao Lei said, and it is aquatic, in a substance we cannot enter, which means it chooses when the fight happens. So we take that away from it. How? We give it something it wants more. There was a gold quality treasure chest sitting on a rock shelf in the middle of that lava lake, which is how bosses work. The chest is the bait for us. Fine, it can also be the bait for it. Chain scrolls to hold it. Freeze scrolls to blunt it. Zhou Hai at the front because Zhou Hai is a wall. Bait it out onto land and never let it back in the lava, because in the lava it wins by simply waiting. Everyone agreed. And then Wu Tian came to the door. I need to explain Wu Tian's face. He is 8 feet tall and carries 2 hammers that weigh more than a horse, and he was standing in a doorway looking like a dog that has watched a car leave. My lord, I want to go too. And here is where I did something I am mildly ashamed of and would absolutely do again. I put on my most serious expression, walked over, and said, Tian, the safety of the territory is the most important thing there is. Every one of us is leaving. There will be nobody here. He started to say something. I can only entrust this to you. Who else could I trust with it? The territory cannot do without you. Only when you are here can I go out and not worry. I watched it land. I watched 8 feet of legendary warrior visibly swell. He hit himself in the chest with a fist. My lord, rest assured, with Wu Tian holding this territory, nobody can harbor bad intentions. Yes, exactly. That is why it has to be you. He picked up his hammers and went off to patrol my walls with the seriousness of a man guarding a vault, and behind me the entire table was making noises into their sleeves. For the record, it was also true. I do need somebody there. It is just that I also needed him not to be standing next to a lava lake, asking when he could hit it. We went in the next morning with the heroes and a gold-quality party scroll, and we cleared the outer chamber first. Zhou Hai took point because his god's shield eats fireballs. He walked out into that underground world with a wall of gold light in front of him and shouted, Monsters! Your grandfather is here! Come and kill me! And then ran off in the other direction while 8 crown flame serpents chased him. Yang Shu laughed so hard he had to lean on a rock. Zhou Hai, chased by snakes. You know nothing. You go and stand in front of one. They fought in pairs, which they have practiced for months. Liu Kang and Han Tao took one from opposite sides and put both halberds into the same spot on its heart within a quarter second of each other. Gao Lei and Ma Li took one apart carefully, giving ground the entire time, and finished it without taking a scratch. Jiang Wu and Guo Ping took one, and the one they took was in considerably worse condition than any of the others when it finally went down, and about 80% of that was Guo Ping. I barely lifted a finger. That is what a hero roster is for. Xian Li and I took one together at the end, mostly because Hu Zi had gone off to lure more, and there was one left over. She fights with a flying sword, controlled at range, water attribute, and when the serpent turned to breathe fire on her, she turned the sword in mid-air and put it through the back of its skull, and the fire never arrived. We killed everything in the outer chamber and collected the flame flowers, and then we went to the lava. The Crown Blaze Serpent Emperor took the bait, and the bait was a lie, because the first thing that came out of the lava was not the Crown Blaze Serpent Emperor. I had Hu Zi and Xian Li's unicorn flying toward the chest, and the lava split, and something enormous came out of it and lunged, and I had the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique open, and I saw straight through it. There was nothing inside. It was energy, shaped like a snake. Clone! It is the flame clone! Move! I slapped a speed talisman on Hu Zi, and Xian Li did the same, and both pets went sideways as 2 streaks of blue, and the clone closed its mouth on empty air and fell back into the lava and evaporated. And then the real one came up underneath where we had been. It is hard to convey the size, several hundred meters of it bathed in lava, with flame running over the scales like water going the wrong way, and next to it I was a toy. It chased us, under the lava, at the speed of a flying tiger on stimulants, spitting fireballs up through the surface. "Do we use a scroll?" Shenli shouted. "Not yet, it has to be on land," so I gave it a reason. I jumped off Huzi in midair, which is a thing I can now do because my constitution is absurd, hung there for the 1.5 seconds it takes, and put 50,000 war chi into Dragon Soars the 9 Heavens straight down into the lava lake. The lake detonated. Zhou Hai had to put God's shield over the entire shoreline. Huzi caught me and got pushed forward by the blast, which frankly helped. Xianli got a barrier up over herself and the unicorn and still came out of it singed. And the crown-blazed serpent emperor came out of the lava, furious. It went berserk on the spot, red light crawling over it, and it came after me specifically, and it did not stop coming after me specifically for the rest of the fight. I had annoyed it personally. There is no other explanation. It chased me onto land, which was the entire point, and the heroes were waiting. Xian Li and I cracked 2 chain scrolls at once, and chains came out of the ground and pinned several hundred meters of serpent to the rock. It fought them. It nearly broke them in about 40 seconds. So I threw a freeze scroll. It froze solid. A mountain of ice with a snake in it. "Now," somebody said, and we all started forward, and then fire came out of the ice from the inside, and it thawed itself. I threw another freeze scroll. It froze. It thawed. I froze it again. We did this 7 or 8 times. I want to describe the atmosphere, because by about the 5th cycle, the heroes had stopped being tense and started being embarrassed on the creature's behalf. Zhou Lei was leaning on his spear. Yang Su asked whether this counted as a fight. Zhou Hai asked whether we could eat it afterward, and Zhou Lei told him not to fill up on snake when there was boss available. And every time the ice cracked, that enormous head would come free and see another scroll already in the air, and I swear to you, it made a noise on the 7th one that was not rage. It was outrage. It was the sound of something that has understood the shape of its afternoon. Eventually, the fire stopped coming. It had run out. A creature with an internal furnace the size of a house had been made to spend all of it melting ice. "It is empty," I said. "Take it." They went in and found the vital point and broke through the surface ice, and a spear went into its heart, and it went berserk one final time and shattered its own restraints. That part was not funny at all. Its tail came around, and Liu Kang was in the arc, and Zhou Hai jumped, threw God's shield out to 30 meters, and took the hit for both of them, and the 2 of them went through the air together and hit a wall. Yang Su got caught by the return sweep, and I heard something in him break. Do not meet it head on. Gao Lei was already moving, already shooting, already pulling it off the injured. I had 1 chain scroll left. I fused it to gold on the spot, standing in the middle of a boss fight, which is a thing I could not have done a week earlier, and threw it. Gold 3-star chains went into the bedrock and stapled it down. And then everybody put everything into 1 point at once, and Xian Li stood in front of the whole group holding a barrier scroll against a wall of firebombs so the rest of us did not have to look up. The crown-blazed serpent emperor died with its head against the stone. Heavenly Dao announcement. First in the world to kill a level 65 gold quality boss. 200 attribute points, 2,000 reputation, 20 skill points. Yang Shu had 3 broken ribs and drank something and was walking inside 10 minutes. Zhou Hai had a dislocated shoulder and told me it had been worth it to see Liu Kang's face. Nobody died. That is the whole difference between this fight and the Vajra Monkey King, and the difference is not that I got stronger. The difference is that I planned it for an evening with people who knew what they were doing, and then I cheated. The loot was gold quality pants, which sounds like a joke and is not, and a gold quality ring blueprint, and a tier 6 fire crystal core, and out of the treasure chest on the rock shelf came a stone. Teleportation stone, purple quality, teleports you to a fixed set of coordinates, 10-day cooldown. I fused it to gold, and the cooldown became 5 days, and then I sat there holding it while something occurred to me. Every lord can see their own coordinates. It is right there in the interface, a long, meaningless string of numbers that everybody has looked at and nobody has ever been able to use for anything. If somebody tells me their coordinates, I can be standing in their territory. I posted it in the friend group, and the group had a small collective event. Murong Jing, you can teleport to anyone, and it is gold. 5 days is nothing. Xiao Ning, so you could come here whenever you wanted. Gao Wen, he will not waste a 5-day cooldown on you, be serious. Everybody has a territory to run, which was correct. I told them plainly that I would not come visiting for no reason, and everybody accepted that, and then Bai Lihua messaged me privately 11 minutes later. There is a gold quality boss outside my territory, level 53. I found it a week ago, and I do not have the strength to kill it. Will you come? You want the heavenly Tao reward for it. Yes. No hedging at all. That is why I like her. The world first reward for a gold boss is enormous, and I cannot claim it because I cannot kill it. If you come, everything it drops is yours. I only want the announcement. You already know I have had that reward and cannot get it twice, which is why the trade is fair. I said I would come after the 100 times drop rate ran out, and I asked what it was, and she sent me a full briefing. Spider Demon, gold quality, 5 skills, Silk, Venom, Speed, Dark Orb, and Illusion, which she had studied for a week and prepared against with a dozen fire scrolls and a set of mental resistance equipment. She had done more preparation for that one monster than most lords do for a war. You have prepared thoroughly, and I am still not confident. You are the one who is amazing. What is amazing about me? Strength. What else would it be? Before I went, I fused 2 more things, and one of them changed how I fight. Those armored bears out on the plain drop a green quality skill book called Vajra Body. Defense plus 20% for a short time. It is a garbage skill. Nobody would ever use it. I dumped it into a pile of every junk skill book I owned, which was several hundred, and let the mythical talent chew through all of it in one motion. What came out was gold quality unique, and it was called Invincible Overlord Body. Physical and magical defense plus 100%, and 1 second of true invincibility. Immune to all damage. 24-hour cooldown. 1 second. I want to be clear about how good 1 second is. Almost every fight I have ever nearly lost, I nearly lost inside 1 second. The gravity trap, the ice wall, the moment 1,000 angels pressed a button. 1 guaranteed second where nothing in existence can touch me is not a defensive skill. It is a get-out-of-death card. I put 24 skill points into it and took it to level 30. 3 seconds. Defense plus 3,000%. Cooldown down to 14 hours. For 3 seconds a day, I am simply not killable, and I made that out of a bear skill that a farmer would have thrown away. Then I upgraded Xianli's sword, because I had been meaning to for weeks and kept getting distracted by wars. My lord, my equipment is of sufficient quality. Focus on what the territory needs. Bring it here. I have time now. Who knows if I will later. She thought about it, and then put the peerless sword down in front of me without another word, which from Xianli is a display of trust that I did not miss. I fed it 30 pieces of equipment I had picked specifically for their attributes, and it came out gold, with an attack speed bonus and a sword storm skill on it, and she held it and turned it over, and her expression did not change at all, except that it did. Thank you, my lord. I like this very much. What about armor? I could do a set. No, she said it flatly, and then, when I raised an eyebrow at her, she explained it, which for Xianli is a lecture. Armor is for surviving a mistake. A weapon is for not making one. Spend it on weapons, my lord. All of us would tell you the same. So I did. I took every hero's weapon that week and fused the lot of them to gold, and when Jiang Wu got his back, he held it up to the light for so long that Yang Shu threw something at him. And then, because the 100 times drop rate had 1 day left on it, and I am not a man who wastes a resource, I went and committed genocide against a nation of bees. That is not hyperbole, and I am not proud of it. Some of my guards came back from a scouting sweep in a state. Faces swollen, eyes swollen, one of them crying, and the entire Medusa detachment gathered around them making the noises that people make. My lord, bees. There were so many. We had barely gone in. They chased us for a kilometer. I had Earth Guardian clear the swelling, which took about 11 seconds with a priest skill, and I want to note that the crying stopped the instant the swelling did. They are soldiers. They have taken spear wounds without a sound. They were crying about their faces. I went to look. Wahoo Soldier Bee, level 10. Level 10, white quality, and there were, at a conservative estimate, hundreds of millions of them. They were arranged in a ring. A patrol line, a proper perimeter, kilometers across, held by bees with defined roles, and behind it a sea of flowers, and behind that a hive. The hive was 100 meters tall. I opened the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique and looked inside it, because I have an eye that works like a microscope and no self-control, and the entire interior was a lattice of tubes all running toward the center, and the center was hollow. The center was hollow because it was full. Wahoo honey, green quality, beauty, skin, pain relief, detoxification, and rapid recovery of stamina, constitution, and spirit. I swallowed, loudly enough that Li heard it. My lord, what do you see? Honey, a great deal of honey. She said, where there are bees, there is honey. That is normal. And then I explained what it does to your skin, and I watched the most disciplined general in my territory and 11 snake women all arrive at the same conclusion in the same half-second. Li said, very evenly, killing these bees to level up is indeed a good idea, my lord. So we killed several 100 million bees with storm scrolls. It took hours. I bought every white quality attack scroll on the market because using blue scrolls on level 10 bees was offensive to me. And then I walked forward across a field of flowers throwing storms into a black cloud, and my guards took a stack of scrolls each and did the same on both flanks. The bees came in waves that blotted out the ground. At one point the entire sky went dark and the noise was a physical pressure, and I threw a gold quality fire dragon scroll into it, and a burning dragon went through the swarm and the sky filled with sparks that were not sparks. My guards went from level 40 to 40 to 49 on bees, 400 soldiers. The queen and the king came out of the top of the hive when the hive was breached and tried to leave, because their entire skill set is reproduction, and they have never once had to fight, and I shot both of them out of the air with a single arrow. Both. One arrow. They were flying in line. I would love to claim I planned it. Then I cut the hive open and started collecting, and the smell that came out of that hole knocked me back a step. 5,000 units of green, then 1,000 of blue, then 100 of purple, then 1 unit of gold. Flower Tiger Honey Essence, gold quality, permanently increases appearance, constitution, stamina, and spirit by 1 point per unit, maximum 10 units per person, permanently increases appearance. I have found gold quality equipment, purple ore veins, mythical talent cards, and the personal attention of the heavenly Tao, and I want to tell you that the single most valuable object I have ever pulled out of the ground, in terms of the reaction it produced in my own territory, was jam that makes you prettier. I fused everything. 100 units of purple honey makes 1 unit of gold essence, which is an obscene exchange rate, and I burned every drop we had and ended up with a bit over 1,000 units. I kept 10 for myself. I gave half of the rest to Li. She read the description. Her face did nothing whatsoever, and her eyes did quite a lot. Thank you, my lord. And then she went and distributed it, and I stood on a rock and listened to 400 elite snake women, veterans of a monster siege, make a noise I have never heard on a battlefield. I ate my 10. They are sweet in a way that does not cloy. They melt, and the 10th one is as good as the first. And then I took out a mirror, because I am human, and looked. 10 points of appearance is not subtle. I genuinely did not recognize myself for a second. Not different features, the same face run through a filter that removed every mistake in it. I turned my head twice like an idiot and said out loud, alone, huh, so it works. The live stream, I am told, lost its collective mind, and there is now an entire section of my audience that is only there for that. Back home, I finally hit the requirements for 2 things I had been carrying around for weeks. The Supreme Emperor's Cape needed 100,000 cultivation energy, and I had 87,000. So I fused an essence replenishing pill up to 7 stars, which cost a fortune in pills, and cultivated for 6 hours at 8 times speed, and crossed 100,000 overnight. I put the cape on and looked in the mirror again, which is becoming a habit I do not love. All attributes plus 100. Luck plus 50, talent plus 50, technique, cultivation, recovery, and attack all doubled, a passive shield that catches the first serious hit of the day, and an active that releases a golden holy dragon once every 24 hours, and it is a set piece, 1 of 5. I have one. The talent plus 50 pushed me over the requirement for the Divine King Art, a gold quality unique cultivation technique I had been unable to read for a month, and I fused it into my old purple technique, and the purple one was simply eaten. My war key turned metal attribute, which is why, from that point on, the dragon comes out pure gold instead of golden yellow, and why it goes through armor like the armor is a suggestion. I checked my sheet for the first time in a long while. Level 57. Every basic attribute over 1,000 with equipment. Spirit over 2,000. 12 gold quality combat skills, 4 of them unique. Merit points, 11,660,000. 4 months ago, I had 10 gold coins of corn seeds and a talent I was disappointed by. I also bought a lake. That is the last thing I did before I went to buy Li Hua, and it is the most ridiculous purchase of my life. A man called Toilet Maggot Catcher had been trying to sell a blue quality lake blueprint in the chat channel for 7 days, and nobody wanted it, because everybody has water outside their walls, and nobody needs to build a pond. I bought it for 400,000 gold. He asked for 400. He had been prepared to take 150. I had been prepared to pay 500. He thanked me. He genuinely thanked me. and told me he knew it was worthless. It is not worthless. Wild water has monsters in it. You cannot train in wild water. You cannot moor anything in wild water, and you certainly cannot build and drill a navy in a river full of things that eat soldiers. I fused it to gold, built it, upgraded it, and put a shipyard on the shore. Then I went to the Hall of Souls and summoned a man to command a navy I do not have, on a lake I built yesterday, for a war that has not happened. Su Shizong greets his lord. Come on, I will introduce you to the others. Gao Lei took it entirely in stride, which is the most Gao Lei thing about Gao Lei. The Lord is correct. We have met no enemy on the water yet. That is not the same as never. And then I put a set of coordinates into a teleportation stone and appeared in Bai Lihua's territory, on top of her. I want to be extremely clear that this was a coordinate problem and not a decision. She had sent me her position. Her position was where she was standing. She did not move. I arrived at her position. I opened my eyes flat on the ground with my hands braced on either side of a woman who is the second strongest lord in the world and who was, at that moment, approximately 11 centimeters away and extremely still. Neither of us said anything for about 2 seconds. Would you get up? She said. Yes, sorry, I did not expect. It was my fault. I forgot to move. Somewhere on another planet, several million people made a sound. She showed me her territory, and I want to say something about it because I did not expect to be moved by a walking tour. It is smaller than mine. Fewer people, fewer buildings, lower level. And it is beautiful. There are flowers down both sides of every street, transplanted from the wild by hand. There are streetlights, solar-powered, from a technology building she pulled out of a drawer and has been quietly unable to use properly because the materials do not exist here. My territory is a machine. Hers is a place people live. These were all collected from outside, she said, about the flowers. They are good, are they not? Some of my people do this in their dormitories. Where I live is not this nice. We are surviving every day, she said. Life should be a little refined. Making the space you live in the kind you like is a good thing. I have thought about that sentence more than I have thought about most of the war. We struck a partnership on the solar building in about 4 minutes, which is how business goes when neither party is trying to win. She makes the streetlights, I find the materials, because I have a city and 2 worlds of suppliers. I sell them because I am the only shop. Then we went to kill her spider. The forest was full of web, and the web was full of smaller spiders, level 50, most of them the size of a wash basin, and her people went ahead of us burning it with incendiary props. Be careful, she said. They hide. They like the trees, and they use leaves. I threw a purple quality storm scroll into it. Is that not a waste? She said, in the exact tone of a woman watching somebody light a cigar with a banknote. No waste. The storm went through that forest and took every spider in it out of the trees at once and tore them apart mid-air, and her experience bar moved so far that she stopped talking and looked at me sideways for a while. Have you been leveling like this the whole time? Recently, yes. How many scrolls do you have left? Not many, a few hundred. She said, a few hundred? And I said, they are all blue quality, and she made a small noise and dropped it. Then we reached the clearing with the gold quality chest in it, and I could not see the boss. I opened the Dark Knight Holy Eye technique, and there it was, up in the canopy, enormous, folded flat against a trunk in a way that a thing that size should not be able to fold, watching us. And there was energy already coming off it, colorless, odorless, silent, and drifting down over the whole clearing. Get your people out, I said. This is beyond them. It has already started. She turned and shouted the order without asking me a single question, which is a thing I will remember about her, and her men fell back. It has to be the illusion, she said. I do not see anything unusual. And then she turned to look at me, and I was not there. Li Ming? She took out a mental resistance pill, the ones she had spent a week preparing. She swallowed it. It did nothing. That was the moment I understood the fight, because I was watching it happen from 2 meters away. Her spirit stat is high. Mine is over 2,000, and I was standing inside the same cloud, unaffected, and it was not because I was tougher. The Dark Knight Holy Eye technique was open. That is all. It is not a mental defense. It just shows you what is actually there. The illusion is not a mind attack at all. It is a kind of magic pretending to be one, which is why everybody prepares for it wrong. That is interesting, I said, and she did not hear me. I stepped toward her, and she attacked me. Monster, take this! I got out of the way, came around behind her, caught her wrist, and pinned it. Wake up, it is me, wake up. She stopped struggling. Li Ming, where are you? I cannot see you. I am right beside you. You are in an illusion. Then help me. There is a vine around my arm. I cannot move it. I looked down at my own hand, which was the vine. I want to give you a moment with this. I am standing in a forest, holding the wrist of the second strongest lord in the world, and she is calmly asking me to cut through the thing gripping her, and the thing gripping her is me, and from where she is standing, I am a tree. The live stream tells me this is the single most replayed 30 seconds of my entire life. I let go. Then I had an idea, took out a bottle of water and squirted her in the face. She blinked. Water ran off her chin. She looked at me, entirely present, entirely herself, entirely furious. How did you know water would break it? I did not. I wanted to try something. The spider demon screamed because its illusion was gone, and the scream sounded like a baby crying, which is a detail I could have lived without. Bai Lihua went sideways. I went forward. I opened the war key and let it build, and it came out pure gold now, not golden yellow, because of the divine king art, and metal attribute war key does one thing better than anything else, and that thing is going through armor. Dragon soars the 9 heavens at level 30 with 50,000 behind it. The spider demon had already committed. It had jumped for my head from 30 meters, which meant it was in the air, which meant it could not choose anywhere else to be. It spat dark orbs. It spat silk. The orbs actually worked. They dimmed the dragon considerably, and at the last possible instant, it wrapped itself completely in silk like a cocoon. The dragon went through the cocoon and put the spider demon into a tree hard enough that the tree came out of the ground at the root. It was not dead. That thing was gold quality, and it was still moving. So I walked over while it was pinned under its own tree and finished it, and I want to be honest with you, there was no drama in it at all. It had used its one trick on somebody who could see through it, and after that it was just a large animal having a bad day. The heavenly Tao announced Bai Lihua's name to the entire continent. She stood there in a wrecked clearing with water still on her face and listened to the whole world be told that the lord of her territory had brought down a gold-quality boss. And she did not say anything for a while, and then she said, "Thank you. You paid for it." I know what I paid. Thank you anyway. I took the drops because that was the deal, and I gave her the gold-quality chest, which was not the deal. She tried to argue. I told her to remember it next time she found something good, and she thought about that and accepted it, and that is how business is supposed to work. So, 4 months ago, I was under 9 floors of somebody else's kitchen, listening to dust settle, and then I was under a truck, and then I was sitting in an empty field being disappointed by a talent that turns 2 things into 1 thing. Now I am the first man alive to level 50. I have 150,000 citizens, 20 legends of my own world, a river that washes clothes, and a floor I cannot afford to finish. I have killed 60,000 people in an afternoon with a shovel. I broke 2 enemy capitals in one night by myself, and the second one had 6 magic formations and a reversed keyhole and a general who was cleverer than me and still lost. And I have 11,660,000 merit points. I need 100 million. That is the part nobody in that chat channel understands when they call me the son of heaven. Every single thing I have built, the whole city, the army, the shop, the auction house, all of it, is on a shelf in a much larger building, and there is 1 door out, and the price on that door is 88 million more than I have. I am going to get it. That is not in question. It is arithmetic, and I am very good at arithmetic. 2 things are in question. The first is a man named Marcus Holt, who has escaped me 4 times, who I did not recognize the 4th time and told so to his face, and who is somewhere in Angel City right now, explaining to anybody who will listen exactly whose fault all of this is. I have never once thought about him properly. He has thought about nothing else. That is usually how it goes wrong. And the second is the door. Because the heavenly Tao pulled me out of my own body and walked me through a void for a length of time I cannot measure, to a gate the size of the sky, and I put my hand out, and my hand went through it. No resistance, like it was a picture of a door. I never found out what was on the other side. I never found out why it wanted me to see it. And I have not told a single person about it, including the 400 guards who watched me float, including Lin Jie, including Bai Lihua, including the several million strangers on my own planet who watch me brush my teeth. Because there is one thing I have learned in 3 lifetimes, and it is this. When something that enormous opens a door for you and lets your hand pass straight through and then puts you back on the ground without a word, it is not finished with you.